Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Audio Fanfics and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is, what if Naruto discovered love with Hinata, and found the missing pieces of his heart through Ino, Sakura, Karen, Yugito, Tamari, Tenten, and Tayuya, Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. He sat on top of the roof and stared off into nothing for a long time. The stars seemed to wink at him, perhaps to tell him he would be fine, perhaps mocking him like so many others had done in the past. He took a deep breath and sighed as he thought about all the things he had wanted in his life and all the things he still to this day did not have, and he wondered if maybe everyone was right. It's not like he didn't try hard, and he surely worked hard. Well, of course he was a bit lazy at times, but hey, he needed a break too. Oh, stop it, you silly. The sound of a light smack followed, and then a woman's giggle, then a man's mock protest. Naruto looked over the edge of the roof and smiled involuntarily as the couple hugged, then kissed briefly before walking further down the street, then stopped and kissed again. A couple, a happy couple, he corrected himself. Not a strange occurrence in and of itself, but for him it was a draw he had never had, and recently he began to wonder if he would ever have it. As he watched them, he wondered what it was like to have someone kiss him, to really kiss him. Oh, he had been kissed before, on the cheek, on the forehead by Grandma Tsunade. He chuckled. She hated when he called her that, but on some level he liked to call her that because it made him feel like he was more than just a pitiful orphan that most people hated. It made him feel like he belonged. Like he had a family. He chewed his bottom lip a little as his mind began to wander, and he daydreamed that the woman below was kissing him, but while appealing in a sense, it didn't feel right. She wasn't his, and that was as important to his thoughts as protecting his precious ones had become. Still, he never had a girlfriend, and he had never been involved with anyone in any significant way. All his life had been focused on training, becoming the best, so he could become Hokage. He clenched his hands into fists as he thought about it, then slowly took a deep breath and relaxed before focusing on the couple below. Looking down at the man and woman again, he shook his head, then grumbled as the man's hand wandered slowly down her back until he touched her backside and she squealed and smacked him on the shoulder. To Naruto's surprise, she didn't seem to mind as much as he thought she should. If it had been him and Sakura, she would have brained him, no scratch that. She would have pounded him into the dirt like a nail, then she would have brained him. Followed by a long-winded speech about how he shouldn't do such a thing to a woman. Yet here was this guy touching this woman on her butt, and he wondered why she didn't just clock him, but she leaned in and kissed him on the lips as they rounded the corner, which made him grumble again once they were out of his line of sight. He sat back on his haunches and frowned. I don't understand. Because you are young and never experienced it, pup. Naruto frowned, then looked inside himself and saw the fox's red eyes looking at him. What would you know about it, Fana? You haven't had any experience with love yourself, have you? Do demons love? Naruto was a little miffed. Since they merged, the fox would come out more and actually talk to him about whatever was going on. It was frustrating, but at the same time it was kind of comforting since no one else would give him a straight answer, or in some case not even the time of day. While I have not lived as you have, I do see things through your eyes. I see how others have treated you and how in return you have treated them. I do not fully understand human emotions, but in the time that I have been contained within you until the time we merged into one, I have observed and obtained an understanding of humans and their intricacies, as far as demons loving, in a manner of speaking, and as I understand the human sentiment, I guess we have a disposition, something that is similar in nature. Naruto frowned, then shook his head before losing his temper. What the hell are you talking about? I didn't understand half the things you said. The demon chuckled softly, then smiled. Again. I have watched and I have learned, and yes, we do. Naruto shoved his hands in his pockets and glowered inwardly. Why didn't you just say that? You didn't have to go all highbrow on me. I hate when people do that. The demon grinned again, looking much like the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland. I do not try to confuse you on purpose, it is just that I have set myself so that I can guide you better by being able to communicate with you on the level that a teacher would. In the future, I will try to be less highbrow. Naruto looked up and nodded. Well, that would be awesome, but what does this have to do with love? The demon chuckled again and closed his eyes so only his mouth could be seen. Patience. I am still thinking on it, but I believe starting tomorrow you will begin to have answers, and a better life will open before you. One you never expected. And with those words the mouth closed and the sound of Fana slumbering greeted him. Naruto opened his eyes then frowned even deeper than before. Once Fana started taking an interest in Naruto he began advising him. His advice was never bad, it was just that Naruto didn't always understand what he was trying to tell him, which tended to cause more harm than good because he would lose his temper. Anyone who knew Naruto more than passingly knew that once he lost his temper, he lost his ability to reason, which was never a good thing. Most of the time the damn fox would just make him feel stupid, but Naruto always realized afterwards that the fox was right. He just seemed to think a lot further ahead than he did. Still frowning, Naruto jumped off of the roof of his old apartment and trudged to the inn where Jiraiya had gotten them a room. His little foray into his old world showed him that Jiraiya was correct. It seemed everything in Konoha had moved on without him. Oh, well, almost everything. She looked out the bedroom window and sighed. The moon was full and there was a slight breeze that stirred the curtains on her window and caused her wind chime that hung outside to jingle softly. She could see all the way to the outer area of the courtyard and she wished she had the freedom to come and go as others did, but she knew that was not to be at this time in her life. Hyuga Hinata stood in her nightdress, slippers on her feet and wished she could fly. She wanted so desperately to escape from the confines of the Hyuga household, to be able to hang out with friends, eat what she wanted where she wanted, to go to slumber parties, just to be free. But she was the heir to the Hyuga household and she knew better than anyone that she had a responsibility, and future heirs do not act that way, she could hear her father saying. The one time he gave her that speech never left her head and made her feel more sad and alone than anything, and somehow her father in all of his overbearing stuffiness exasperated the situation by gazing at her in his way that made her feel like she could never do anything right. With another soft sigh she went to her bed and reached inside of her pillowcase and pulled out the one thing that always took away her melancholy, a battered orange t-shirt. With a soft smile she put it to her nose and sniffed deeply, and a lone tear wet her eyelash which she wiped away with the object of her affection. Years ago, when he was injured in the failed recovery of Sasuke, she had snuck into his hospital room and watched over him the entire night. A simple genjutsu prevented the nurses from seeing her, and she was able to do what she had always wanted, spend time with the one she admired. Oh sure he was unconscious, but this was as close as she was ever able to bring herself to him, and even though she was worried for his well-being, she was content to make sure he was going to be okay firsthand. When she realized he was waking up, she panicked, and grabbing his t-shirt to cover her face so no one would recognize her, leapt from his window, and ran all the way home. In the time since she took the shirt, she had washed it, and sewn the holes so it looked serviceable again, but only one other person had worn it after Naruto, and wearing his shirt had made her so lightheaded she had not done it again. She thought to use it as a nightshirt so she could always feel close to him, but she decided it was better if she didn't until she could control her reactions better. A smile on her face now at the memory, she walked to the windowsill again and saw a shooting star fly across to the east and she made a hasty wish. I wish Naruto-kun is safe, and he returns home soon, I miss him. Quickly she looked around then blushed as she realized she said that out loud, but then smiled, blush still in place as she hugged the shirt to her chest. Well, I do miss him, I wish he would come home. Slowly she closed her window, then walked over and lay in her bed, but not before she tucked his shirt into her pillowcase again and lay her head softly on top of the pillow, wishing it was his chest. Slowly she closed her eyes and sighed. Good night Naruto-kun. Oh. With a flourish Jiraiya finished signing his name on the note and placed it inside of an envelope and sealed it. He would drop that off in the morning before they went to see Tsunade. She would want to know how Naruto's training had gone. Maybe after he could go do some research. Ika Ecstasy was due out in another month and he was still 10 chapters from being done. While he didn't want to disappoint his fans, he really didn't want to disappoint his bank account. With a sigh he stood and stretched his back, which felt stiffer than usual, so he promised himself a soak in the hot springs as soon as he was done with Tsunade and Naruto. The thought of Naruto made him smile and shake his head. The kid had grown up a lot, and his skills had grown by leaps and bounds, and don't get him started on the jutsus he learned. The kid was like a blasted sponge. Still, There was a lot for him to learn before he could achieve his dream if ever. Oh, there was definitely a spark in Naruto that would help him achieve a lot, but there was still something missing for him to become Hokage. One was experience, the other sadly was common sense. The kid seemed to never get any wiser, and his attitude, sheesh. Jiraiya smiled as he thought about it, then shook his head with a light chuckle. Well, he had grown, and no one really thought he would do that much, except Tsunade, who told him the night before they left that he would die slowly and painfully if anything happened to Naruto, which made the Toad Sage wonder when she had started caring about him. Before Jiraiya could ponder that further, the door flew open and in walked Naruto carrying a bowl of ramen. Jiraiya only chuckled. Hey kid, eating again I see. How was your stroll around town? Naruto kicked the door closed behind him and sat at the table in the corner next to the window. Some things are still the same, but you were right. There are different things here, the village has changed, and I did not see many people that I remember. I hope it is different in the daytime. Naruto's face seemed normal enough, but spending the last few years with him, Jiraiya learned to be able to read his moods. With a shrug, he went over to the shelf and opened a bottle of sake. When he's ready, he'll talk. Jiraiya thought to himself as he unwrapped the cap of the bottle. Naruto broke apart his chopsticks and got a mouthful of ramen and swallowed it before turning to Jiraiya. Pervy sage. Jiraiya sighed and poured himself a cup of sake. You know I hate that name, kid, what do you want? Naruto laid his chopsticks down and gulped loudly. How do you get a girlfriend? Jiraiya stopped with the sake halfway to his lips, then looked at Naruto and placed the cup on the table. Kid, are you screwing with me? You never expressed an interest before, especially not in that. Naruto's earnest expression told Jiraiya all he needed to know. So, he has grown up more than I had thought. I was just wondering because I see people all of the time, holding hands, kissing, and hugging, and I am curious. It's not like I want one or anything, he said hastily. The word lonely almost slipped out of his mouth, but Naruto thought he had covered it up fast enough. I wonder what the big deal is and what it would be like to have one. The Toad Sage picked up the cup and drank its contents in one gulp, then poured another before looking at his ward again. Kid, what I'm going to tell you will stay with you for the rest of your life whether you want it or not, but you always remember what the wise Toad Sage told you, I say, and keep it in that rock head of yours, and you can't go wrong. Naruto nodded his head and waited. Jiraiya took a deep breath, then raised one hand in the air with his index finger extended towards the ceiling and said, Women are insane. Naruto fell out of his chair and grumbled to himself before jumping up and yelling at Jiraiya. What? That makes no sense. What do you mean insane? Jiraiya, expecting the kid's outburst, was already waving him to sit down. Relax, finish your ramen and I will explain all. Let the all-wise and knowing sage of toads teach you all about the opposite. Naruto rolled his eyes but sat down grumbling, all perverted, more like it. Jiraiya frowned but walked over with the sake jug and the cup and sat down across from Naruto. You see, kid, when a man has those special feelings deep in his stomach that happen only when he looks at a woman, that is the beginning of love. From there you always think about them, you can't wait to see them, you find reasons to go find them just so you can hear their voice. That is the first part. Naruto frowned around a mouthful of ramen then swallowed. So what does that have to do with women being insane? Jiraiya laughed, then patted Naruto's hand before pouring himself another cup of sake. Wait. You will understand when I am finished. After knocking back the second cup, Jiraiya set it down and smiled. Once you get to that stage, the only logical thing to do is to ask them on a date. But a woman believes she should keep you waiting, that she shouldn't admit she cares or that she wants you. So the first time you will get a no because they want to keep you guessing. Naruto looked confused and tapped the side of his face with his chopsticks. But, if she likes you, then why won't she just say yes? Jiraiya laughed, then slapped his leg before slamming another cup of sake. That is what I am trying to explain. Women believe that they have to keep a man waiting, it is the way they are raised and it is something they do to all men. She will lead you around by your. Looking at Naruto's face, he toned down what he was going to say. Manly parts until you're frustrated and can't see straight, but the worst is she will do this until you are in love with her, and then the real torment begins. But I'll tell you true, Naruto. If the time ever comes when a woman is honest with you and tells you the truth the first time, marry her, because that means she was meant for you and you will never find another like her. Jiraiya thumped himself on the chest with a fist. Why do you think I have stayed single all this time? I know the secrets of women, and I know how to avoid their feminine traps. You'll never hear about old Jiraiya being tripped up by a woman. Naruto smiled. Because no one wants to be with a pervert. But he thought back to the woman who let that guy touch her butt and wondered. Jiraiya knocked back another cup of sake, then shook his head. Not true. If she loves you, some things that you consider perverted will be acceptable in certain places, and completely accepted in private. But it all depends on the woman, and if she is truly right for you. Jiraiya poured another cup, then looked at Naruto slyly. Say, are you holding out on me? Have you found someone you were interested in? Only in town for a few hours and already ready to jump on the date wagon. Kid, maybe I was wrong about you. Tell me, does she have nice legs? Naruto jumped up again and slammed his chopsticks on the table. It's not like that, you perverted sage. I just want. Naruto looked confused suddenly, then slowly sat down again. I just want to not be alone anymore. Naruto didn't know why he blurted out the truth. He was sure Jiraiya didn't care or would use it against him in some way, but for some reason he had to say it. It just had to come out. Jiraiya watched as Naruto raged, then deflated in seconds, and wondered what was going on inside of him. The kid's never been like this before. What's gotten him so shaken up and wanting a girlfriend already? In fact, for a while there, I was sure he would be peeping at me or some other guy. Guess I'll have to change my opinion. Kid, there comes a time in every man and woman's life when they don't want to be alone anymore for whatever reasons. Only you can decide if you are ready to take on the responsibility of a relationship or not. It is not just about the nice things like kissing and hugging. There is Gamma Bunta size responsibility involved. Jiraiya grinned when Naruto's eyes bugged out at his analogy, then sobered again. There is pain too. Loneliness, heartache, and if you are truly unlucky or in your case hard-headed, there is heartbreak. Jiraiya's hand reached inside of his shirt near his heart, and his face became completely blank for a moment. There is always heartbreak. Before Naruto could respond, Jiraiya yanked his hand out of his shirt, then slammed another cup of sake. Naruto wondered briefly if he was going to get crocked. Jiraiya only got drunk in front of him once before, and it wasn't a pretty picture. Jiraiya smiled at his ward, then poured another glass. You have to give to the person you are with as much as you receive, and sometimes more. You can never think that you are more important than she is, and if she is truly meant for you, then you will always, always, be the most important thing in her life. Do you understand? Naruto frowned, then shook his head. No. Jiraiya walked over, then ruffled Naruto's hair, which caused him to scowl and complain slightly. Good. The confusion will prepare you for a relationship. Now get some sleep. Big day tomorrow. You are back in your old hometown. We have to talk to Tsunade, find you a place to live, and I'm sure you have things you want to do. The sage dragged out the word things, but it was wasted on Naruto. Lost in his own thoughts, Naruto nodded, then went and climbed into his bed and pulled the blanket over his head, after putting his nightcap on, of course. Soon the steady rise and fall of his chest and the slight snores every so often told of his slumbering. Jiraiya shook his head but smiled. The kid was really growing up. Now if they could get him to stop wearing orange. Naruto groaned as Jiraiya led him through the halls to the Hokage's office. He looked around and was relieved that nothing had changed here, at least, but pervy sage could have at least let him sleep a little longer, and no breakfast either. What a jerk. In response, Naruto's stomach growled and he patted it with his hand. Is this gonna take long? I'm hungry. Jiraiya waved off Naruto's comment and knocked on the large double doors in front of him. You can go get some of that crap you are always eating after we talk to Tsunade. I'm sure she would rather you eat after than before. As he finished his sentence, Tsunade's voice came from inside the office, partially muffled. It's open. Opening the door, then stepping inside, Jiraiya smiled wider as he saw Tsunade sitting at her desk with a huge mound of articles and files all over it. Next to the stack was a small neat pile, no bigger than 7 folders. Naruto assumed that it was the done pile as he closed the door behind him. Hey, Grandma Tsunade. The Hokage of the Leaf Village's smile turned to a frown before she sighed, then smiled again. Hello, Naruto. I wish you wouldn't call me that, but I am glad to see you didn't kill Jiraiya and vice versa. In fact, I notice a distinct difference in you. The Hokage got up and walked over to him and squeezed his arms, then poked his chest with a finger lightly. Naruto blushed slightly but then flexed for Tsunade. Yeah, I worked really hard and I'm ready to show what I've learned. Jiraiya stood up and flexed his arms. Look Tsunade, I got stronger too. Feel my manly muscles. Tsunade walked over then tapped Jiraiya in the center of his chest just hard enough to make him exhale, causing his stomach to revert to its normal size, which was a lot bigger than it was a moment before. I'm working on that. The Hokage chuckled then walked behind her desk again and sat down, gesturing for the two to take a seat also. In truth, Tsunade was very impressed. Naruto had left the Leaf Village a short bean pole, while he was toned. Muscular was not the way to describe his physique back when he was younger. When she poked his chest just now and squeezed his bicep, his flesh barely gave at all, and he wasn't even flexing. Naruto's training must have been rigorous indeed. If he had learned any techniques or jutsus as well as he had worked out, he would be Jonin level in no time, which would not sit well with many considering Naruto had not even become a Chunin yet. Well, that is another cat to skin another day. Which she thought to herself as she considered her adopted little brother. It had been almost an eternity since he left, and to be honest, she had missed him around the village. It was thankfully a lot quieter without him, but at the same time it had been a lot sadder and more predictable without him. It was good to see him back finally. Taking a deep breath, causing Jiraiya's eyes to bulge, she let it out and smiled at her adopted knucklehead. The reason I wanted the two of you here was so I can find out how your training went, Naruto, and to discuss with you what are your plans for the future. I still want to be Hokage Grandma Tsunade. That is the only plan I have for the future, and I think my training has gone great. There is still a lot I want to learn, but I think I'm ready for just about anything now. Jiraiya nodded slightly as he crossed his legs. Yes, Naruto has gained a number of new skills and greatly improved upon his old ones. He is still brash and has a head like a boulder, but I think the time with me has helped him immensely. Tsunade frowned as she looked at Jiraiya then looked back at Naruto. Did he corrupt you, Naruto? Naruto jumped to his feet with a shout. No way. I'll never be a perv like him. The Hokage grinned then looked at Jiraiya, who had a goofy look on his face and began to sweat. Well, at least there will not be three perverts running around the Leaf Village. At Naruto's blush, Tsunade reached into a desk drawer and pulled out a small box and placed it on her desk. Here, Naruto. I know you will not have any money for the things you will need, so I have put a little aside for you every paycheck. It will not make you rich, but it will help until you start running missions again. I will also give you some time to reaccustom yourself to the lay of the town again and catch up with the people you know if you can find them. There have been a lot of changes, and things have been done to make the village more efficient. We will update you as needed. Naruto got up and took the box from the desk and bowed to Tsunade. Thank you, Bakan. I will make you proud, he said rather solemnly, surprising both Jiraiya and Tsunade, who exchanged a glance, but neither said anything. Naruto turned on his heel and walked to the door, but as soon as he had closed it behind him, he opened the box because, of course, curiosity was too much for him. His jaw hit the floor and stopped in his tracks as he took in the amount of money in the box, and as he counted it, he had a burst of inspiration to do something he had never thought he would be able to do. Now, what is close to Ikirachus? He thought to himself as he started walking again. Oh. As he left the office, Tsunade looked at Jiraiya but frowned slightly. He is still in danger. We have been able to hold off the Akatsuki's incursions, but we need to find out where their main base is and why they are after him. Jiraiya HRM med but spoke up rather quickly. Well, it seems they are not just after Naruto. I cannot confirm this, but it seems they are after all Jinchuriki. Tsunade frowned as she took this in but shook her head. Why would they want to capture the Jinchuriki? Most of them are tormented and in some cases, like Gaara, mentally unstable because of their captives. Jiraiya shrugged as he crossed his legs. Well, the only thing I can think of is it relates to their captives. They want the power of the tailed beasts, but I couldn't begin to tell you why. Reaching into his shirt, Jiraiya took a scroll from his hidden pouch and tossed it to her. I believe Naruto and I were able to narrow it down to 5 areas. The problem is 3 of them are almost impossible to get to. 2 are underground and 1 is so deep in a mountain range it would take weeks just to reach it, and the paths we could find are treacherous. The Hokage frowned as she opened the scroll and examined the highlighted areas. So you think these 5 are the most likely areas that hold the 5 on their council? Jiraiya nodded as he leaned over and pointed at a spot on the scroll. Here is where we ran into the most trouble. We almost didn't make it out alive, and that is the easiest to reach. Tsunade nodded again and unrolled a map. Here is where we have lost a team recently, near the Dark Forest. I have sent another team of Anbu Black Ops in. They should report back in a day or so. Jiraiya looked at the map she had opened and frowned deeply as he looked at a scroll he had left some notes he had taken on. Are you sure? I have no information about Akatsuki being active in that area, especially not that close to any of the hidden villages. Tsunade nodded slightly as she considered his map next to hers. Our resources are very reliable, and the ones we used that were questionable, we had double-checked by allies. I can't say 100% it is Akatsuki, but we have had strange reports coming in from there, and no one has returned as yet to confirm or deny what is happening. Pointing to the map she sketched with her fingernail, a large area almost 2 grid squares across. This is where it is, but since the one team disappeared, I have not been able to confirm my suspicions. Looking thoughtful, Jiraiya taped the center of the marked area of the map. If not Akatsuki, then who? Our old partner is not subtle enough to be the one doing it. With a frown, he tapped the map a few times with his index finger. Jiraiya looked up from the map at her, a troubled expression on his face. I haven't told him. Tsunade nodded and frowned herself. I figured. He would have wanted to take my head off if he knew. She took a deep breath which made Jiraiya's eyes bulge again, then she let it out. I will have to tell him eventually. He deserves to know. Looking up, she saw where Jiraiya was looking, then got a look of annoyance before she started rolling up her sleeve. So, still can't keep your eyes off my Jiraiya? Jiraiya blinked, then tried to back away from Tsunade. No, I was looking at the map. Honest. The slap could be heard a block away. Oh. Naruto stood in front of the house and grinned big enough to swallow his ears as the man shook his hand. You have made an excellent decision, Uzumaki-san. I will have the paperwork finished and ready for your signature by this evening. The man at first didn't appear too happy with Naruto standing in his office, until he started laying money on his desk. Then suddenly the guy was in the best mood of his life and couldn't stop jabbering away at him. Naruto almost laughed in the guy's face a few times as he thought, realtor style, butt-kissing jutsu. As the man walked away, a spring in his step, Naruto took the keys and walked inside and was very pleased. It wasn't a huge house, but it was his. As he walked to the backyard again, he grinned widely as he considered his surroundings. A butterfly feeling started inside of him as he looked at the pool and considered what else he could add to make the house more suitable. He turned and went upstairs and admired the master bedroom with the glamour tub in the bathroom, and the walk-in closet. Plenty of room for clothes, he thought, but then frowned slightly. The only unfortunate thing about the bathroom, it didn't have a shower. But with a shrug he smiled again. He could always use the bathroom in the hallway. Already he was thinking if he could find any of his old friends and invite them over, they could stay the night. He could have a pool party. He could buy a grill and have a barbecue. Hell, he could pretty much do whatever he wanted. The thought brought another huge grin to his face as he rarely had opportunities to do such things in his past. Now his options were almost limitless. All told, it was a very pleasant house. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths and a pool in the backyard. Now all he needed to do was furnish it and buy the essentials, but where to start? He thought for a moment as he looked around, then sighed. What bothers you, pup? The fox seemed to sleep and wake up more than a house cat, but was more annoying at times. I was just thinking it would be nice to have someone to share this with. No family. My friends are wherever they are. I always wanted my own place, and now that I have it, I don't have anyone to show it off to. Much like my accomplishments, I don't have anyone to share it with. The fox grinned slightly as his eyes twinkled at Naruto. You have Tsunade and Jiraiya. Naruto thought for a second, then shook his head. No, while I will tell them about this, it isn't the same. They aren't who I would really like to share this with. I want, but Naruto faltered as he considered his options. First instinct was to go find Sakura, but even before Fana objected, he realized that she isn't what he needed. Well, he realized that years ago, and she had only come into his mind now out of force of habit than any actual romantic feelings. In truth, he didn't know what love was, but then neither did Sakura. The demon yawned, then stretched in his mind before settling down again. Perhaps you should go out into the town and look around. Go eat some ramen. Maybe there are still people here that you know and you will be able to invite them back. You will not know sitting here feeling sorry for yourself. Naruto growled, then practically ran down the steps and out the house. I am not feeling sorry for myself, you pain in the. The kitsune laughed before closing its eyes again. Maybe the damn thing would stay asleep this time. Oh, hey old man. Long time no see. Naruto sat down at a table and grinned at the looks of surprise on the waitress and the owner's face. Naruto, where have you been? It has been 3 years since you were last here. Naruto smiled as he sat back in his chair and folded his hands across his chest. Training, but I'm back now and ready to continue my journey to becoming Hokage. The old man shook his head but laughed as he slapped his hand on the table. Well, good. That is what I like to hear. We have missed you around here. Naruto perked up at this and smiled broadly at Yuki. Really? The old man nodded as he headed to the back. Of course. I am glad my best customer is back. Naruto frowned slightly, then let it go. He had known Yuki since he had first walked into the ramen stand and they fed him till his belly felt like it would burst. He didn't mean it the way it sounded. Ayami smiled pleasantly at him, secretly admiring how well developed Naruto had become, and almost missed his order. 2 beef, 3 shrimp, 2 pork, and 4 miso. Ayami nodded, then walked back to the kitchen, almost walking into the counter as she kept looking at Naruto. He looks so buff now, and even cuter since he has grown older. With a blush she handed the ticket to her father, who gave her the fisheye but laughed as she glared at him. The old man turned to the prep table and began cutting noodles as Ayami began bringing Naruto bowls of ramen and a set of chopsticks. Naruto broke his chopsticks apart, but before he could dig in, a voice stopped him and broke his concentration. Is that you, Naruto? It has been many years since you have been around these parts. The voice was deeper, but he recognized it instantly. Yes, it has, Neji. Please, won't you join me? Neji looked surprised for a second, then sat across from Naruto. As the waitress walked up, Neji turned to her and gave her a curt nod. Green tea, please. The waitress nodded quickly and turned to get the order as Neji turned back towards Naruto. So where have you been? We were all told that you were on a special mission and would not be back for some time, but 3 years is quite a stretch for a mission. Naruto clicked his chopsticks together as he thought of how much to tell Neji, then shrugged. I was out training. I cannot reveal much of it, but my life was in danger and the Hokage thought it was best that I disappeared for a time. The less that was known about it, the less trouble that would come to the Leaf Village. Neji watched Naruto for a second as he ate, then nodded slightly to himself. It is as I was told originally. At Naruto's shocked look, Neji smiled. Yes, I knew. There is not much that goes on in the Leaf Village that the Hyuga clan does not know about. As Neji's tea was sat in front of him, he said in a smaller voice, she will be glad that you are back. Looking up from his ramen, Naruto blinked and finished chewing. Who? Being completely dense, or innocent if you will, he had no clue who Neji referred to. To his memory, no one had ever really expressed any curiosity or concern for him in his checkered past, so someone missing him was almost a complete surprise. Neji sipped his tea while watching Naruto over his cup, then sat it on the saucer. Time to test him. He thought to himself. You have grown, Naruto. I can sense that without using the Byakugan, but when it comes to people you are still quite stupid, I see. Naruto felt the old anger rising up in him as he clenched his teeth. Luckily the voice of reason, Arfana, truth be told, interjected itself before Naruto could blow his top. Calm, pup. Calm. Do as we taught you. Observe his reactions before you fly off the handle. Jiraiya would be quite disappointed if you lost your temper over something so small. Slowly unclenching his fists, Naruto took a deep breath and let it out as Fana's words penetrated the fog the anger began to create in his mind. It's true. I do not know how to deal with people. I never have. But in order to someday be Hokage, I'll have to learn. Looking at his ramen bowl, he slowly pushed it away, then sighed. People have never given me a reason to learn. I don't want to sound pathetic, but I've had to fight for everything, and very few people have ever given me anything other than their insults. Firming his jaw, he looked Neji in the eyes. I do not know about people, but if you are willing to help, I'm willing to learn. Naruto seemed to get a feeling of approval from Fana, which in turn made him feel better inside. Neji watched Naruto closely, then nodded. Believe it or not, I understand. After our fight during the Chunin exam, I found out some things that made me re-evaluate all that I had done and what I should do about the future. I apologize for insulting you, but I wanted to know if you grew emotionally, as well as physically. Neji sipped his tea again then looked at Naruto. I thought much about my defeat in the exams, but I do not hold it against you. At the time, the better man won. I was arrogant, blind, and for lack of a better word, foolish. I had closed my mind to anything else because I believed in the wrong things. I like to think I have grown also, and I am trying to make things different. He paused for a moment to consider, and Naruto's lack of interruption made him decide to continue. I do think things would be different now, and I would like to spar with you in the future, but that can wait for another time. I see that you have matured a lot. You do not let your anger control you as you used to. I am impressed. Naruto smiled a little but was surprised by Neji's words. Originally they were not even close to being on friendly terms, but Neji did change before Naruto left and now it seemed he was completely different. Thank you. I appreciate your kind words, and I'd like to spar with you. I need to keep my skills up and you were always a strong opponent Neji-sama. Naruto watched Neji as he nodded and sipped his tea. Placing the cup down Neji shook his head briefly. Not Sama, please. I am not the pompous I used to be, and thank you, I look forward to testing our skills against each other. But to voice my opinion now, I think that you would make a good match for her now, and if you wish, I will help you to understand her better. Naruto frowned as he tossed his chopsticks onto the table, starting to feel frustration creeping into his mind again. Okay, I'll ask again. Who? Neji smiled as he finished his tea and set the cup down on the table and crossing his hands in his lap. The heir to the Hyuga clan. My cousin Hinata. The next day Neji met him at the training grounds and Naruto was excited because he had been looking forward to sparring with someone. Hell, he would have taken on the old man at the ramen shop if he had to wait too long. So you are honestly telling me that you didn't know? The look on Neji's face made Naruto feel like a complete moron. Honestly Neji, I had no idea Hinata felt that way about me. I mean, she was nice to me in the past, like when she gave me the healing paste, or when she told me that I was the strongest person she knows. Naruto frowned as he tossed his frog money pouch on top of a towel, quickly followed by his watch and keys. Now that I think about it, she was one of the only people who was always on my side. But I thought it was because she was a fellow ninja trying to help me out. I didn't think she felt that way about me. Neji dropped his own towel and a few items that were in his pocket and nodded. Inside he was astonished. He really had no idea. Unbelievable. I knew Naruto was simple-minded, but this is beyond anything I could have thought possible. At first Neji thought to ask him if he was even interested in girls, but shook that thought away. Better to continue feeling him out. She has been pinning for you since you left. I am sure that when she hears that you have returned to town she will rush out to find you, but pretend it was not a big deal, or that she just bumped into you by accident. Neji bent at the waist and touched his forehead to his knees before straightening and doing it again. It surprised me that she held her emotion for you for so long. But as far as I can tell, she has had strong feelings for you for at least the last 4 years or longer. Naruto cracked his back, then he bent his head to either side to crack his neck before going through a series of stretches designed to loosen tendons and joints alike. I don't get it Neji. I believe you when you tell me she has liked me, but you and I were never friends, especially during our exams. Why are you telling me this? Neji stopped in mid-stretch then shrugged and did a complete split before standing and doing a back flip. Once he landed, he dropped into a cat stance and shook his head from left to right before standing straight again. As I told you before, I had ample time to re-evaluate all the things that I had done in the past and realized my place in the clan. True, Hinata is next in line to be head of the Hyuga clan, but as her cousin I have 3 main duties that I now hold to my heart and will accomplish. 1. To protect the future leader of the clan at all costs. 2. To ensure her happiness. 3. To secure the future growth of the clan. I believe you and Hinata would be very happy together, and the 2 of you together would provide the other 2 of my mission. I am only telling you this so that I can give the 2 of you a chance to see if a relationship is possible. Neji smirked slightly. Among other things, he thought to himself. Naruto thought furiously for a few seconds before looking at Neji and nodding. Even without the fox telling him, he understood the logic. Neji knew that Naruto would be devoted to her and would gladly lay his life down to protect her if they were in love. Hell, even if they weren't in love, he would not let anything hurt her. But Neji, I like Hinata, but I don't know if I could love her. I don't know anything about her. As if you have many other prospects, pup. You could do much worse than this, Hinata, as I see things. Naruto growled internally at the fox. You shut up. I can't just fall in love with someone because that is what they want. I don't know the first thing about having a girlfriend. He almost said love. In truth, he didn't know what love was. A child forced to grow up alone, shunned and hated by everyone, love was as foreign to Naruto as anything he could think of. So now, with his life advancing, certain needs had developed in him, and he didn't know how to satisfy them. Truth be told, if he didn't find love, he wondered if it would be so bad. He had done without it this long. Fana, of course, disagreed wholeheartedly. And that is why you have nothing and no one in your life. Didn't you say you wanted a girlfriend? Someone to kiss, and hold, and talk to. You are being presented one practically without any work. What would it hurt you to investigate this further? Naruto considered the words, then HMPHED. It was true that he was missing something in his life, but what if Hinata decided she didn't like him after she spent some time with him? He didn't want to lose the only person who helped him, stood up for him. Then the words clicked. The only person to ever like him. Unfortunately, before the epiphany reached all corners of his mind, Neji's hand on his shoulder broke his chain of thought, and the revelation was pulled back into the dark corners it had broken away from. Look, I propose that you date her a few times, go out with her and actually devote some time to her and see how you feel. I do not think you will be disappointed if you do, and I do guarantee you will see that I am telling the truth. Naruto nodded as he tried to regain the lost thought, but when it seemed completely out of reach, he shrugged and grinned at Neji. Alright, you've convinced me, but on one condition. Neji laughed lightly as he checked his gear. Name it. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck and grinned. Well, I'd like to think that this is a new start for us. Do you think we could hang out more often also? Spar together, that kind of stuff. Neji blinked for a second, then laughed, a rather pleasant sound to Naruto's surprise. His old laugh was cold, humorless, and he rarely smiled. This was a new Neji. Of course. I had assumed we would do that anyway, but this will make it official. Naruto held out his hand and Neji took it immediately with a firm grip and a smile. Now, shall we begin? Naruto grinned as he crossed the training field, then turned around and nodded. No destructive jutsus, no leaving the training ground. Neji nodded as he took his place across from Naruto. We spar until one surrenders or cannot continue. Naruto took a modified dragon stance and summoned his chakra. Agreed. Neji took a deep breath and assumed the gentle fist stance. Byakugan. Neji made a quick feint to Naruto's right side and threw a shuriken at him before coming on a straight line towards him. Naruto dodged as the shuriken flew past him and threw one in return as he quickly formed a seal, shadow clone jutsu. 20 shadow clones appeared around Naruto and they all drew kunai and launched at the same time at Neji. Neji stopped in place and put up a quick defensive stance before shouting out, rotation. And his chakra left his body to form a defensive barrier around him. The throwing knives bounced and flew away from Neji in different directions as Naruto's shadow clones charged him. Neji's rotation slowed but did not completely stop, and Naruto stopped moving and stared in fascination as Neji appeared to be dancing in slow motion. The first shadow clone hit the sphere of Neji's rotation and appeared to be hit over and over again before finally bursting into smoke. This was something new. All of the shadow clones that Naruto sent at Neji, in a matter of seconds, were gone, none of them remained. Suddenly the sphere was gone and Neji stood beaming with pride. Do you like it? It is a new adaptation to the gentle fist rotation skill. I call it the shadow dance. I can keep the protection of the rotation in effect and still use my gentle fist to attack with it. I developed it in the last 3 years and I must say it is very effective. Naruto nodded in appreciation. Whoa, that is cool, Neji. I never expected to see anything like that. Neji bowed slightly. Thank you. It is very effective, although it requires an immense amount of chakra to maintain. I only plan to use it in a desperate situation. I started working on it a few months after we went after Sasuke. I realized I needed to expand my arsenal a bit, and while I can strike through the rotation, I cannot do it nearly enough times as I can now with the shadow dance. Naruto grinned as he assumed a modified tiger stance, both hands open and flexed like claws, while the lead leg was bent slightly at the knee and the other leg was slightly behind in case he had to kick off and charge. Well then, let me return the favor by showing you one of my new tricks. I'm sure you noticed my shadow clones are more powerful, but that's not all. Naruto's right hand began to glow and a ball of chakra formed there roughly the size of a cantaloupe. Neji frowned as he watched. Rasengan. It is bigger than I remember, but you knew that before you left. Now pup. Show him what I taught you. Rasengan no Jutsu. Naruto thrust his hand forward and the ball of energy left his hand and rushed towards Neji as he dodged to the left, but to his shock the ball followed him. Neji ran towards a tree, then ran up the side and backflipped away at the last second as the Rasengan slammed into it, carving away big chunks of it until it collapsed under its own weight. Neji landed and looked back at the tree and then at Naruto. That was truly impressive. How did you do that? I thought the Rasengan had to stay in contact with the user or it would dissipate. Naruto smiled but then went with the rehearsed story that the fox had told him. As I traveled and trained with Jiraiya, I learned different kinds of jutsu and started wondering what kinds would work well with others. We met different masters, and they taught me lots of different things, and in time I started to experiment on my own. The Rasengan is basically a ball of chakra. So I learned how to use more chakra to tether it to me and control its movement somewhat. Neji blinked, then his eyes got wide. I see. So you are using the puppet master jutsu to maintain control of the Rasengan. Naruto grinned as he rubbed the back of his neck. Exactly. It took me a long time and a lot of practice, but I was finally able to do it without knocking myself out from the amount of chakra it cost. In time, the pervy sage taught me how to control my chakra better so that it cost me less and less to do it. The story wasn't actually a lie. He was taught how to do it, and it did involve a bit of the puppet master jutsu, but the fox was the instructor, and not even Jiraiya knew that or that he could do it. Neji grinned and punched Naruto in the shoulder lightly. Naruto, you are full of surprises. Naruto laughed but resumed his stance again. Wait. It gets better. Naruto summoned the Rasengan again in his right hand, then his face scrunched up in concentration. This is the difficult part. Naruto's left hand began to glow and the Rasengan appeared there as well, although smaller and not nearly as bright. Neji grinned as he walked over to Naruto. 2. That must take a tremendous amount of energy to maintain. Naruto nodded as he stood a little straighter, beads of sweat forming on his forehead and rolling down his cheeks. It does, and I haven't gotten the hang of making it a full size yet, but it is good in case I need it. But here is the impressive part, it will even impress Jiraiya, when I show him. Naruto brought his right hand to his right side near his hip, but turned over his left hand and brought the two Rasengan together to form one a little bigger than a watermelon. As sweat began to pour off of him, his arms visibly trembled as he stood in place for a second, then swiftly he thrust his hands forward towards a training post and the Rasengan sped towards the post with a loud whistling noise until it made contact. The energy began to do what the Rasengan always did, but when it tore through the first few layers of wood, Naruto ripped his two hands away from each other, and the Rasengan seemed to explode, tearing huge chunks of wood out of the post and hurling it everywhere. After the initial shock wore off, Neji could see the training dummy had been completely obliterated, chunks of wood were scattered everywhere, and a crater roughly 10 feet in diameter had been dug out around it. The only thing that survived was the very base of the post, and that was now woefully smaller than it used to be. Incredible. How did you do that? Naruto smirked as he stood a little straighter. Well, the Rasengan is chakra flowing in every different direction at once. I thought that if you could bring two together, you would have double the damage. Unfortunately, when I first tried this, I found out the hard way that the Rasengan was too unstable, and if you bring two together, boom. Neji winced as he considered, then frowned. But you just did it, didn't you? Neji looked at the post, then at Naruto, thinking he might be under the influence of some new genjutsu. Naruto shook his head and laughed. Well, you see, the Rasengan is too unstable. I didn't actually bring them together, I flattened the two against each other. Using more chakra, I created a barrier that held the two apart, and allowed me to compress them together somewhat. When the dual Rasengan reached their target, I just released the barrier between them so they could mingle, the rest is history. Neat huh? To say the least. Naruto, that was an awesome display, I would have never thought to see something like that. Neji grinned as he shook his head, then walked over and grabbed his towel and wiped his hands and neck. Impressive. And he only used his chakra. Neji was still grinning as he dropped his towel and dove at Naruto, but the Jinchuriki sidestepped quickly, then dropped low and attempted to sweep Neji's feet. The Hyuga genius did a quick hop up and no-hand back flip away from him. Naruto, not to be outdone, did a quick tuck and roll and landed next to Neji, who blocked his left-hand heel strike, and drove forward to close Naruto's chakra point on his right shoulder, but was shocked to find Naruto's hand wrapped around his finger, stopping him less than an inch from contact. Naruto grinned like a fool as they both crouched there, so Neji threw a kick at Naruto's right leg, but Naruto dodged it by throwing the same leg backward, but then quickly tried to kick Neji's leg, and Neji in return pulled his away. With the stalemate in place, Neji threw his left hand forward in the form of a one-hand eagle strike that caught Naruto's right shoulder, but Naruto had come forward and gave Neji a vicious headbutt to his forehead, and both fell back in pain before jumping to their feet to face each other again. Neither said a word, but both had a respect of the other's abilities. Naruto was about to pull out one of his Easter eggs, new trick, but Neji dropped his stance and walked over to his belongings again. I'm sorry, Naruto, but I must surrender. That was enjoyable and I look forward to us doing that more often. Unfortunately, I forgot that I am supposed to meet Tenten at 1 p.m, she probably wants to hurt me some more. Naruto felt disappointed but nodded as he painted on a smile. Yeah, that was definitely fun. Although I was hoping for more of a workout. He thought to himself. Oh well, I guess I can go to the house and try out the pool. At least I was able to meet up with Neji. He seems to have mellowed a lot. I like him better like this. Neji did not look up as Naruto approached and wiped himself off as well. Well, what a surprise. Naruto has gotten much stronger as well as matured. Perhaps my decision to tell him about Hinata is not such a bad one after all. Hinata still loves him. Now all that is needed is for Naruto to love her too. Now, how do I get them together? Hey Neji, I bought a house today, the furniture should be there by now. Why don't you come over later and see it? I've got a pool and it is pretty big. Neji smiled as he thought to himself. Perfect. Alright, what time should I be there? Naruto thought for a moment, then grinned. I guess around 6 or 7 is good. I haven't had any company other than Jiraiya in a long time. It'll be good to talk to someone else for once. Naruto and Neji exchanged a few more pleasantries and directions to his new place before going off in separate directions. Later at his house, Naruto set out a bowl of snacks and made sure sodas were cooling inside the refrigerator before looking around and smiling. Cool. Entertaining a guest in my house. Naruto clenched his fists and jumped in the air with a shout. Alright. In his old apartment he didn't have the space to do anything like this, and he always had to worry about neighbors or his roommate. Now, all of that was a thing of the past. He looked around and grinned his famous grin as he took in the brand new furniture. Decorations were sparse, but he preferred it that way, at least until he found some things that suitably fit his personality. A knock at the door made him jump and he grinned as he took 2 steps, then slid across the floor and grasped the handle and opened it. His jaw was the loudest thing that hit the floor. On the other side was not a strong young man, but a small and shapely young woman with pale skin and lavender eyes. Her look of surprise seemed more profound than Naruto's as her eyes got big and seemed to swell up with tears. Naruto-kun, is that you? Hinata's bag dropped to the floor and she rushed forward and wrapped her arms around Naruto and hugged him tight. Her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts only half formed and barely recognized by her, but they all focused on one thing, Naruto. Naruto blinked but then returned the hug a bit tentatively before looking up and seeing Neji smiling at the end of the walk. With a wink, Neji turned and strolled up the street and Naruto watched him until he was out of sight with a slight bewildered look on his face. Well pup, someone's hugging you. That's 1 out of 3. Maybe if you ask nicely she will let you grab her butt too. Naruto growled inwardly. Shut up you. Geez, trained by a pervert, traveled with a pervert, now stuck with one in my mind, Kami hates me. Hinata inhaled deeply and rubbed her head against his chest with a sigh. She must have died. That was the only explanation for such a beautiful thing to happen to her. She was dead. But his chest felt so firm, and his arms around her were so strong. But just as she was enjoying the feeling, common sense as well as shyness slammed into her brain again, overriding her euphoria just before her eyes opened and she stiffened. A deep blush forced its way on her face as she reluctantly pushed herself back away from him. Naruto grinned at her with a light blush himself, but noticed how empty his arms felt suddenly, and he realized he liked the contact. Maybe there was something to this adult stuff after all. Heya Hinata, been a long time huh? He said kind of lamely. He wanted to reach out and hug her again, but as fast as she pulled away he was sure she would object, so he lowered his arms to his sides and just grinned at her. Hinata looked down and nodded as the tips of her index fingers came together in a familiar gesture. She also felt awkward. Now that she stepped back, she wanted nothing more than to rush forward back into his arms, but Naruto had never expressed any interest in her like this before, and she felt really stupid for rushing at him the way she did. Yes, it has, Naruto-kun. I am sorry about that. It's just that, well, I haven't seen you in so long, and it was a surprise when you opened the door and we all missed you around here and no one knew where you went or even if you were going to come back, and Neji told me this afternoon that someone was having a party and he thought it would be a good idea to come, but he wouldn't tell me who, and, well, it's just so great to see you again, Naruto-kun. Naruto grinned wider as he watched her and listened to her rattle on. Instinctively his hand went up and rubbed the back of his neck. Well, I am glad to see you too, and don't worry. I enjoyed the hug, you just caught me off guard. Hinata's face darkened even further, which didn't seem possible but obviously was. He liked it. Naruto-kun liked me hugging him. Kami, did I hear him correctly? Hinata quickly turned her mind away from these thoughts lest she faint, and she reached down and grabbed her bag, but slowly looked up Naruto's body as he stood there. Slowly her gaze traveled upward until she settled on his face again, and she smiled with a slight blush. You sure? Filled out Naruto-kun. I can see you have developed a nice physique and you look much more rugged now. In her mind Hinata was screaming, my god, he is hot. Look at those muscles. Kami, somebody pinch me, I must be dreaming. She couldn't believe how much he had changed. He was always good looking to her, but now he was a virtual masterpiece. Naruto was chiseled like Adonis. Heck, maybe he was chiseled by Adonis, he looked so good. She could see, and a moment ago feel his hard muscles and his six-pack, but more than that was the way his arms felt around her. Immediately she tore those thoughts out as she felt the familiar tingle in her belly that she only got when she thought of him, and since she didn't bring a spare change of panties she immediately had to stop herself. Thankfully Naruto broke her reverie before she swooned, or worse. Naruto smiled as he looked down at Hinata's body and appraised her the same way. Yes, and I see that you have developed nicely as well, Hinata. You have gotten bigger and everything. Hinata blinked, then blushed deeply at the off-color compliment, but inwardly she was rather pleased that he would notice things like that about her. He likes my body. He likes my. Hinata couldn't believe her ears. If any other man had said that to her, she would have blushed and walked away, or under the right circumstances she would do what she had done to Kiba, she would slap him silly. But not this man, oh no. Naruto saying those few words rocked her more than an aftershock. Naruto suddenly realized how what he had said sounded and quickly interjected whatever he could think of. Oh, what I mean is you have gotten a lot prettier since the last time I saw you. I didn't mean that the way it sounded. I'm not a perv or anything. Red crept up her neck and finally settled under her eyes as she closed them slightly and in a small voice thanked him. Do not worry, Naruto-kun. I know you were only trying to make me feel good. He thinks I'm pretty, she thought triumphantly, and a silly grin settled on her face as she leaned lightly against the doorjamb, arms in the shape of a V as she held her bag in front of her. For a few minutes they just stood there looking at each other and smiling until the reverie was broken by a familiar voice in Naruto's head. Well, are you going to invite her in or mount her right there on the landing? Naruto turned inward and screamed at the fox. Shouldn't you be asleep or something? With a chuckle the fox closed his eyes even though Naruto knew he was still awake and just waiting to add another comment. Demented housecat, he thought to himself. Perverted mentor. Perverted fox demon, what next? With a light shake of his head, but still smiling at her, he opened the door wider. I'm sorry, Hinata. Would you like to come in? Hinata blinked as if not realizing that she was still outside, then nodded quickly and stepped into the house after Naruto stepped out of the way and then shut the door behind her. "This is a nice place, Naruto-kun," she said as she looked around the living room. No decorations to speak of, but the furniture was tasteful. She craned her neck to look over towards the dining room and kitchen without trying not to appear nosy, but her curiosity about the rest of the house was getting the better of her. "How long have you lived here? I was sure when you got back to town you would go for your old apartment." Naruto smiled as he trotted to the kitchen and grabbed himself an energy drink out of the side-by-side refrigerator. "I just bought it today. Me and the pervy sage got back last night and I hadn't had a chance to do anything until this morning. After Grandma Tsunade gave me some money that she saved up for me while I was gone, I ran out and bought it. The apartment was nice when I was younger, but I need my space now, and I always wanted a place where I could say, this is my house. Besides, they had rented it to someone else anyway." Hinata giggled at that as she took in all of the living room, and wondered what would look good on the walls of his house. She thought he would be at home with natural decorations. Nature things. Paintings of forests and statues of animals in natural poses. She was almost positive that he would be happy with things like that in his house, and she was wondering what she could give him as a housewarming present that would fit that description. "They just moved the last of the furniture in before you got here," he said, which broke her train of thought. "Oh, do you want a drink? I have soda, water, iced tea, and energy drinks." Hinata smiled as she listened to him, then nodded. "You just bought it today? Wow, that is so cool. Oh, the tea sounds good. Is it sweetened?" Naruto shook his head as he took the tea out, then called back down to her. "No, I never know how much sugar is the right amount, so I usually make it and add it later depending on how sweet I want it at the time." Hinata looked up at the kitchen and smiled as she thought to herself. Wow, he has gotten so mature, wanting his own house and buying it when he had the money. I never thought Naruto-kun would do something like this on his own. He has really grown up. There was no insult intended on her part, but she remembered how Naruto was when they were children. Loud, boisterous, and not a care in the world. Originally she thought Naruto would be happy in a one-room shack with a dirt floor and an outhouse. But here he was, and he had more for himself than most other shinobi. Naruto had left a big kid, but when he returned he had matured so much he seemed a completely different person. She was pleasantly surprised that he had thoughts like this, but Naruto was always able to surprise and impress her. She walked around and admired the sparse decorations. While it was definitely nice to see he had not changed that much, it was nice to know that he could change a little. A futon couch, 2 bean bags, and a coffee table in the middle. Naruto had such simple taste, but she liked him for that. This one room, while sparse, was more honestly decorated than her family's entire mansion, which was designed and decorated to impress. Much like her own bedroom, everything had a functional purpose here in Naruto's house. Perhaps in time he would decorate with things that were sentimental to him, like her bedroom was for her. Perhaps I could suggest a thing or two, give it a woman's touch. She thought to herself, then blushed as she thought how nice it would be if she could say that she helped Naruto decorate his new house. I like the furniture you picked out. Hinata turned around and fell into the bean bag closest to her with a giggle and squirmed her way down into it with a happy sigh. Naruto came over and handed her a glass of tea and set his energy drink down before turning and performing the same maneuver into the bean bag next to hers. That was the reason I bought them. After a hard day of training, you come in and fall into one of these. Hinata held a hand over her mouth and laughed as she watched him sink into the chair with a sigh that rivaled her own. With a smile he looked at her with a new light. What a beautiful laugh she has, he thought to himself as he reached over and grabbed his energy drink and took a healthy swallow. Hinata looked around again, then drank some tea before clearing her throat. Naruto, when will everyone else get here?" Naruto looked at her and blinked before smiling rather sheepishly. "Well, Neji was supposed to be here, but I guess he had something else to do. Since I have not seen anyone else I know, Hinata, I haven't invited anyone else, so I guess it is just you and me." Hinata turned suddenly paler, then gradually she turned beet red. "You, me, alone together, in your house?" Naruto thought about it and blushed. "Well, I could invite some people to come over if you want. I don't want you to get the wrong idea and think I lured you here or anything. I really did invite Neji, but he said something to me earlier about going to see Tenten. I guess they are going to train together or something. Hinata nodded, but it seemed like she wasn't really listening. She took a deep breath, then let it out and swallowed noticeably before suddenly jumping to her feet, dropping the tea on the floor. I need to use your bathroom. Where is it? Naruto didn't notice, but Hinata had her thighs squeezed tightly together and seemed on the verge of bouncing from one foot to the other. Naruto casually pointed towards the kitchen. First door on the right as you walk into the kitchen. She turned and looked, then ran with a quick, "Thank you," tossed over her shoulder, leaving Naruto with a perplexed look on his face. She must have had to go pretty bad. The fox grumbled in the back of his mind. Fool. Did you not see her reactions? Do you remember what her cousin told you? All of her reactions point to the obvious conclusions. Fana sniffed slightly and grinned, his tongue lolling out of his mouth. And while I have been in captivity for some time, I would know that smell anywhere. How I have missed it. She is in heat for you, pup. Naruto scoffed as he bent and picked up the glass and grabbed a few paper towels and wiped up the tea. Oh please. Hinata was always this way. She is just a very jumpy person, and I don't like you referring to her like that. She is not a dog and humans do not go into heat, he said rather indignantly. The fox grumbled at first but then grinned at Naruto. I beg to differ with you, pup. Humans do go into heat. It is just not as efficient as an animal's, but I will not argue with you on the matter. I will make you a wager then. If I lose, I will teach you one of the advanced jutsus that Jiraiya says that you are not ready for. But if you lose, you will release your body to me for 1 hour one day of my choosing. Naruto chuckled. He knew Hinata far better than this stupid fox. Fair deal. I can't wait to learn this new jutsu. The terms of the bet were laid out and Naruto waited patiently with a smirk on his face. Not long after, Hinata came from the kitchen looking much calmer than before. She had a slight flush to her cheeks, but she also looked satisfied as explained in a quiet voice. I am sorry, Naruto-kun, I just had to go really badly. Naruto crowed inwardly. See, I told you. The fox chuckled. Just do as you were instructed. You will see. Naruto shrugged, then got up and walked over to her and put a hand on either of her shoulders, palms to the wall, effectively pinning her in place, and he felt a distinct shiver run through her, while she stared at him wide-eyed, lips slightly parted. Naruto leaned in closer and smelled a slight musky odor which mixed enticingly with the smell of jasmine, as he leaned down and whispered in her ear. It's all right, I'm glad that you're back. Hinata saw him as if in slow motion as he turned his head slightly towards her and lightly kissed her on the right cheek. Even after his lips no longer touched her, she felt as if they were branded there. Her cheek burned and deep within her something else burned as well. As he straightened, her right hand slowly came up and pressed where he had kissed her, and her eyes were wide with surprise as her face turned crimson and she looked into his eyes. His eyes seemed so blue, and so deep, and every time she looked into them, especially now, she felt she could fall into them and be happy forever. Approximately 3 heartbeats later, her eyes rolled up in her head and she fell into his arms with a sigh. Naruto looked down at her and frowned, but almost instantly started to grin as he picked her up and carried her to the couch bridal style. Her smile mirrored his own as he lay her gently on the couch and watched her chest rise and fall in a gentler rhythm. Wow, she really does care about me, he thought as he lightly traced a finger over her cheek and knelt next to the couch to watch over her. Fana had been right. The fox told him exactly what would happen based upon Naruto's memories of Hinata and past encounters with her. You lose, pup. I will let you know when I am ready to collect your debt. Shut up, Fana, he thought at the fox, who just laughed. Even though he lost a bet, Naruto was not as unhappy as he let on. Oh. Neji sat at a desk in his room with a lone candle burning and the smell of sandalwood in the air nearby. A journal lay open before him, and with a quill pen he dipped into an inkwell and placed a checkmark next to an item on a list. With a smile he set the quill down and blew lightly on the paper to help the ink to dry and read aloud the sentence. Step 1. Reunite them. Now, on to Step 2. Neji then closed the book and placed it in a drawer and locked it. Smiling still, Neji walked out of his room and down the hall. Yes, I definitely see bright things in their future. Hinata stretched and sighed with a pleasant smile. She had the most beautiful dream that she was at a house with Naruto, his house, and he gave her a kiss on her cheek and everything became a beautiful haze as all the blood rushed to her face. Even now at the memory she felt all tingly and she could feel goosebumps along her skin. She pulled her pillow to her and squeezed it tight against her and a sweet shiver ran down her back as she moaned in pleasure. Oh, Naruto-kun. Sadly, like most pleasurable moments, it was interrupted. Common sense returned to her, and at that moment she realized two things. 1. This wasn't her pillow, it was too small and it was a little rougher than her velvet pillow cover. 2. Someone was next to her. Are you okay, Hinata? I heard you say my name and I came over to see if you needed something. Hinata let out a little scream and jumped up holding the pillow to her chest like a lifeline now as she opened her eyes and stared at Naruto. No. I was waking up. What happened? Naruto grinned and blushed a little as he leaned towards her. Well, I came over and I kissed you on the cheek, and you fainted. HMPH. He thought to himself. Now I understand why she was always fainting around me. Hinata leaned towards Naruto with a shy smile and a slight blush highlighting her cheeks as she lowered the pillow into her lap. Why did you kiss me, Naruto-kun? She really enjoyed the kiss. Her fainting proved that, but he had never made any obvious movements to do this before, or even any hints that he felt anyway about her other than friendly. Naruto smiled as he watched her eyes then shrugged a little. Well, you've always been pretty, and you're nice, and out of everyone in the Leaf Village you were the only person who never teased me or made me feel like an outcast, a monster. Naruto frowned a little and looked at his hands as he laid them on the couch and he rested back on his heels. There were two reasons for this that immediately came to his mind, but one was a bit hazy, something in his past. He would have to think on this some more later. The other was a little more obvious, and it made him feel foolish. I gotta be honest with you, Hinata, I feel stupid now because I never noticed that before. It took me 3 years and being away from here, and finally someone pointing it out to me, for me to realize that. I'm sorry, Hinata-chan, I have been as blind to you as everyone has been to me. Hinata blushed furiously, but she reached out and placed both of her hands on top of his, making him look at her and blush again. He called me Hinata-chan. Well, he has always called me Hinata-chan at odd moments, but he sounds different now, like it means more than him just being polite. It is okay, Naruto-kun. I do not blame you, and I am not mad at you. I think you and I have spent most of our lives being misunderstood, and in some ways mistreated. Hinata tried not to think too much about that, but her mind automatically turned to the last time she did something really wrong, and it made her shake her head quickly and continue what she was going to say quickly. If you would like, I'd like to take the next few months to try and undo some of what was done to us. Maybe then we can grow beyond the pain. Naruto looked into her eyes and saw the hope there, and he could feel the sadness of her life. From a father who disapproved of everything she did, to her struggling to be a good ninja, to her wanting more than anything to be with him. Well, starting today, one of those things would definitely change. Hinata, I like you, I realize that more now than I ever have before. And I agree. I think that the only way we'll be able to grow beyond how we were treated is, together. Hinata's hands tightened on top of Naruto's as she watched him and tears began to well up in her eyes. Together. Are you serious? Do you really mean it, Naruto-kun? Naruto smiled as he reached out and wiped a tear that had begun to fall from her eye with his thumb. He never noticed before, but now he did. She's so beautiful, yet so fragile. He thought as he looked into her eyes. But she knows what she wants, so in that, she is stronger than I have ever been. Yeah, I mean it. I think we should make every effort to get to know each other, spend as much time together. I know there is a fun and happy girl inside of you trying to get out. We could train together like me and Neji do, and go to movies and eat together. Heck, we could do everything together, well, almost everything. I don't think you want to see me, you know. Hinata blinked in confusion, but as Naruto continued to roll his eyes and point his head in the direction of the kitchen, realization came to her and she blushed crimson, but then they both laughed. Nodding to himself as the fox coached him, Naruto continued. I don't think we should call it anything just yet. I do like you, and I know now that you have strong feelings about me, but I think we should take it slow, see where it goes and what develops. At the very least we will be the best of friends and there for each other in times of need and emotional crisis. And we can always look forward to the future. Fana smiled as he watched Hinata through Naruto's eyes. Now pup, watch her reaction to the words I have given you. Naruto looked intently at Hinata as she absorbed everything he said. So, what do you think? Hinata took her hands from Naruto's and she sat up a little straighter as she looked at him. His words, so confident and strong. He was never like this before. Naruto-kun, how you've grown. At the moment she looked very small and very vulnerable and Naruto felt the instinct to protect her no matter what. Something he felt towards her back in the Chunin exams after she had been hurt by her cousin, and he swore he would beat him. Even now he would take on anyone to protect her. Naruto-kun, may I ask you a favor? She said in a very small voice. Naruto smiled his biggest smile and nodded. Of course Hinata-chan. Just name it. Hinata's bottom lip trembled as she sat perfectly straight, with her hands folded tightly in her lap and tears started to fall from her eyes again. Her voice broke and she began trembling and the little girl that he watched cry in frustration so long ago was back, but this time, it was different. See, can I have a hug? Naruto felt his eyes get moist too and he opened his arms to her and she dove forward wrapping her arms around his waist and began bawling uncontrollably as he rubbed her back and made soothing shushing sounds to her. All the years I wanted someone to be there for me. I was so tired of being alone. As she cried, the sobs held in so long coming out in one rush overwhelmed him, and he began to cry too. Naruto's tears fell from his eyes and landed in her black hair and he kissed the top of her head. It felt so natural to do it, he didn't think twice about it. It didn't take long before his own emotions came to play. Baka. What a moron I've been. What a stupid, fucking moron. He berated himself for all the things he thought he saw but obviously never did. It was a relief when Fana's voice came to him and imparted some more precious wisdom on Naruto, making him feel good despite the tears. Recrimination works best only if you are able to correct what was done wrong. This is a good beginning pup. I can sense something about her, and now about you as well. The two of you should be very good for each other, as long as you don't screw it up. I won't screw this up. I promise I won't screw this up. Naruto held on to Hinata and did not realize he said it out loud. Hinata squeezed just as tight to Naruto and nodded against his chest. I promise too, I will be whatever you want me to be. If all we end up as really good friends then I will be the best friend you ever had. But if we end up as something more I will make it my duty that you never regret making that decision with me, I swear it. This was spoken with such vehemence that it surprised Naruto. But he nodded and vowed that this was a promise, like all promises he made, that he would never break. She continued to cry quietly against him as he looked to the quiet fox inside of him. Hey old fox, why your sudden interest in my love life? You never seemed to care before. The great fox looked up at him again and grinned. Because you have had no interest in love or anything else relationship-wise until recently. I am giving you the help you need, so you do not stumble through this like you have stumbled through so many other things in your life. This isn't your fault. Lack of guidance and the morons you have had to live around, present company excluded of course, have made you what you are. In some cases it is not so bad, in others such as this, it is far worse. She is the only one in your life that has not judged you harshly, and cared for you as you were. It might be a very good idea to keep her. I would keep her if I were you. Naruto didn't say anything, there was nothing to say. As much as he hated to admit it, Fana was right. Naruto didn't realize it until later, but after they made those promises, after the advice from Fana, the house felt more comfortable. Like a home. After a time the sun began to set in the Leaf Village, and Hinata had long since stopped crying but they continued to hold on to each other. Her breathing had settled into a smooth, steady rhythm and occasionally she would stir and rub her face against his chest and sigh. He smiled as he looked down at the top of her head and gave it a gentle kiss. He had no words to describe how it felt to hold her like this, to kiss even the top of her head, but it did make him feel good in a way he never felt before. Naruto yawned quietly, and tried to stretch without moving too much, but a twinge of pain in his thigh made him grimace. As he tried to move his legs, he wondered how long they had been like this. Looking over at the clock Naruto gasped. Crap, we've been like this for 2 hours. Hinata stirred then looked up at his face, a sleepy look on her face. What Naruto-kun? Naruto looked down into her eyes and smiled. Hinata-chan, as much as I am enjoying holding you like this, I can't feel my legs. With a muffled peeping noise she climbed to her feet. Now how the hell was she able to get up and I can't? He thought, as she tried to help him stand up. After a few failed attempts Naruto was finally able to stand under his own power, and he began rubbing his legs roughly as he started to get the pins and needles sensation running up and down his limbs. Rubbing his left leg vigorously he felt a pair of smaller hands rubbing his right leg. The sensation felt rather good until her delicate fingers reached his inner thigh and then it felt much different and a completely different reaction made him blush and dance away from her. Whoa. Yeah. That feels much better. Thanks Hinata. Hey, you know what will make this feel really good? A couple of laps in the pool. Hey, I have a pool too. You should join me if you have a bathing suit. See ya outside. Naruto practically ripped the shirt from his back and took off, kicking the sandals from his feet and running out the back door. The door slammed immediately, echoing through the house, followed by a loud splash. Hinata watched him charge outside and wondered what caused him to suddenly run out like that. Did he change his mind? Was he having doubts? With a small frown Hinata walked into the kitchen and took one of his sandals out of the sink and laid it next to the other one by the refrigerator. Looking outside, Naruto was splashing water on his chest in the shallow end and dancing around and doing deep squats. Hinata watched for a couple of seconds then shrugged and went to the bathroom to change. He was Naruto-kun. And that was all that was needed to be said. Naruto was still doing his dance and throwing water about as he argued with the captive fox in his mind. What the hell was that? Why did that happen? That's never happened before. Why did it get hard and why isn't it going down? The damn fox was laughing hysterically in his head and wouldn't answer anything for the longest time. Finally, after a few minutes of Naruto fuming and dancing in the shallow end, Fana answered him, still chuckling every so often. Calm pup. Calm. This is a natural reaction. Let me explain. Your body is reaching a state of prime potency. When you are near a fertile female and the right stimulus is present, you will react and you will be ready to mate with that female. While meant to reassure and calm him, this statement only sent Naruto into a new set of hysterics as his mind once again got the wrong impression. What? Are you saying my body wants to do it with Hinata? What if I don't want to do it? What if I'm not ready to do it? What if I don't know how to do it? Naruto had a basic idea of, but education, like so many others for when he was in school, was not a major concern for him, so he never learned anything more than the rudimentary skills involved. In other words, he had a vague idea of what goes where, and that was it. In the meantime, nightmare images ran through Naruto's mind of his body running amok and doing it with any female that got in range of his arms and hands. While a normal virile man would have had no problem with this, an uneducated Naruto was getting images of Bakon, the old lady at the fruit stand, Tenten's mother who, while nice, was much older than him and looked it, being the women he caught. Not good for a young man's mental well-being, I can assure you. He didn't even get an image of Sakura or even Hinata, all he got was all of the worst possible circumstances as he saw it. This of course sent Fana into a new fit of hysterics. Well, Tsunade does have really big. Naruto almost drowned himself when that thought and the subsequent image ran through his mind. Gah, shut up. He screamed at the fox after shoving his head underwater. Again, after a few minutes and a lot of internal screaming by Naruto, the fox calmed and tried to explain. It is something you can control, pup. Just think of something else. Think of training. Think of the old man who makes ramen. Think of Kakashi reading his magazines. No, wait, don't think of that. Just breath deeply. As time comes, you will understand how to control it, and you will see even when the problem arises, it is not something to be feared or dreaded. Naruto did not hear the rest of Fana's explanation. He imagined ramen noodles in a great big bowl, throwing kunai at a target, sparring with Neji just after lunch. Gradually, the pressure subsided and he looked down and saw that it wasn't visible anymore. With a deep sigh, he leaned against the wall of the pool and breathed easier. This was something he was going to have to be very careful of. Naruto-kun. Are you alright? Naruto turned and watched as Hinata walked over toward him, a look of cautious concern on her face, and his mind suddenly went hazy and she began to move in slow motion as she kneeled on the edge of the pool next to him. Oh, yeah, I'm fine, Hinata-chan. She smiled as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Hinata-chan. She so liked it when he called her that. There was no pretentiousness, no overt thoughts, no lecherousness. Naruto called her that out of true, honest affection. While it wasn't love, it was more than she ever hoped for from him, and she was happy with that for now. Naruto's mind, however, was stuck on the beauty in front of him. The swimsuit she wore was a one-piece that was lavender with purple lilies in a diagonal pattern on the front around her midsection and across the middle of her back. She smiled at his goofy grin which appeared all on its own and she wondered what he was thinking then blushed. Do you like it, Naruto-kun? I bought it a few months ago because I needed a new suit, it was pretty and seemed to want me to take it home. She giggled as she covered her mouth. Naruto nodded dumbly as he watched her as if she were a dream. Yeah, very pretty, looks good on you. Hinata smiled and blushed lightly. Thank you. I considered getting a bikini, but I didn't think anyone would think I looked good in one. Naruto shook his head and frowned. What? That's silly, Hinata-chan. You would look great in a bikini, in fact I think you would look awesome. Hinata smiled in pleasure at the compliment and her head at him. Really? Do you really think so? At his nod she looked thoughtful then nodded. Okay, I will remember that. The look on her face made him feel giddy, but at the same time combined with her dream-like qualities and his newfound feelings for her, his version of the Loch Ness monster was starting to rear its ugly head again. No pun intended. Naruto's mind went into overdrive as he tried desperately to drive the thoughts out of his head. No you don't. Dancing bears, a wop bop a loo bop a lop bam boom, please. Naruto was almost tempted to reach down and choke the damn thing, then immediately thought better of it as Fana warned him. Not a good idea, pup, unless you want to have to clean your pool. Unsure what Fana meant, but sure he knew what he was talking about, he got his breathing under control, and everything calmed, until he opened his eyes again. Hinata was watching him, but had said nothing. He seemed to be shivering, and then he had his eyes clenched tightly shut. She was at first worried he might be having a seizure of fit, but he opened his eyes and she relaxed slightly. Now that he seemed to be awake again, she reached down and touched the water then shivered. Oh, it's cold. At her exclamation, two buds made their presence known on the front of Hinata's swimsuit and Hinata innocently reached up and crossed her arms under her and squeezed them to ward off the cold. Naruto's eyes bulged and he repeated to himself over and over again as he dove under the water and started swimming, I am not a pervert, I am not a pervert, I am not a pervert. Tsunade frowned slightly but she had to admit if this was accurate, then it was excellent news. Are you certain? Is the information correct? Jiraiya nodded as he steeped his fingers together in front of his face. Gama Kichi assures me that the source he received this from is impeccable. He has never failed me in the past so I see no reason to doubt him now. Tsunade frowned as she considered the information. The leaders of the Akatsuki gone. How? Why? After their drive to capture Naruto and the other Jinchuriki it didn't make any sense, but it had been a long time since they had heard anything about any of that apocalyptic organization. What happened to Itachi, and the strange fish man he journeyed with, any of them for that matter? This was sudden and rather strange to say the least, but Tsunade was never one to look a gift horse in the mouth. She snapped her fingers and an Anbu appeared next to her and bowed. Yes, Hokage. Tsunade looked from Jiraiya to the Anbu then made her decision. Double the patrols around Konoha, pull 50% of the Akatsuki task force and reassign them to more critical areas. The Anbu nodded once then was gone in a swirl of black smoke. Pouring herself a cup of sake she sighed. Keep me posted on them, Jiraiya, this could be a trick to get us off our guard, so I want to be prepared in case it is. Jiraiya nodded as he got up then jumped out of her window. With an afterthought she ran to the window and leaned out it, yelling at his back. And stay away from the bathhouses. Jiraiya grumbled as he lightly touched down on the roof of a nearby building. Damn, now how am I supposed to do my research? A few days later Hinata and Naruto were thick as thieves and neither remembered the incident in the pool. Best friends was a good way to describe it. But there was the undertone of something else as a few weeks passed and they were almost inseparable. Naruto found himself missing her presence, just on a friendly basis he told himself, but shut up as Fana snorted at that. But he began longing for her company so much he got the nerve to sneak into the Hyuga compound and tap on her bedroom window which he only found because of her apt description of it, and the wind chimes she had there. If not for that, he never would have found it. He saw her as she climbed from the bed in her nightie, and he felt those urges rising up in him again, but he had gotten much better at controlling it and he was almost normal when she reached him. She opened the window, but didn't let him in, and made him promise not to do it again unless it was an emergency. Her frantic and scared look made him regretfully relent and promise he wouldn't do it again, but before he left he snuck under her guard and kissed her cheek quickly, before dashing off. She wanted to be angry, but to be honest she was extremely pleased as she held the cheek that was so recently kissed by her crush. And it only got better from there. They met for breakfast every morning. Sometimes she would get up early and prepare breakfast for them, other times they would meet at one of the cafes and eat light before the day's activities. On days they were training with others they would eat a quick lunch together, and then meet for dinner. Every night she would walk home, and he was stuck at her side like they were glued together. They would hold hands and chatter away like kids, and not want to leave each other's company. Fana would grin as he watched them, but there was an undertone of something else Naruto couldn't get a grip on, but in the end all that mattered to him was that they were together. The hand-holding was a huge surprise. It happened so suddenly one day. They were walking and completely against her character she grabbed Naruto's hand and pulled him to a shop they were passing to look in the window. They both blushed, but after that time they would not go anywhere without holding hands. People would ask if they were a couple, but they both just laughed and blushed and it was left at that. More than that though was the realization. Naruto found himself enjoying her company more and missing her more and more when they were off doing other things. The night before, after he walked her home, he lay in his futon and thought really hard about how things had been going and made some very adult decisions about the future. So that morning at breakfast he sat and waited for his ramen and his friend to show up and a smile stayed on his face the entire time. Good morning Naruto-kun. I hope I didn't keep you waiting too long. Naruto jumped up as soon as he heard her voice then gave her a brief hug. Good morning Hinata-chan. No, I haven't been waiting long. I hope you don't mind. I took the liberty of ordering you a cinnamon roll and cup of coffee. Hinata smiled as she ruffled his hair then sat down across from him. Thank you Naruto-kun. Naruto blushed a little but made no effort to rearrange his hair back the way it was. She was the only person he let touch his hair without him getting angry. He broke apart his chopsticks as the waitress brought his ramen to the table and sat it in front of him and Hinata sipped her coffee and broke a small piece of the cinnamon roll off and chewed it with a look of happiness. Naruto chewed a mouthful of ramen then swallowed before looking up at Hinata. I have been thinking Hinata and I wanted to ask you a question. Hinata blinked then swallowed. Of course Naruto-kun. What is on your mind? Naruto toyed with his ramen a little then looked at her. Well, I know you have not gone on any missions because you have been training and learning medical jutsu from Bakon. Hinata nodded as she watched him. Yes, I should be done soon and I will be able to go out on missions again. I thought taking the medical jutsus would be a big help to my teammates if anyone gets injured. Naruto nodded and he took another mouthful of ramen, but Hinata noticed he seemed to only eat it half-heartedly. What was on his mind? Well, I know that you are not part of a team anymore since you went to training. I should start going on missions again soon too, so I was wondering if you would like being my teammate. At the look on Hinata's face Naruto quickly interjected. If you are already set to be on someone else's team I understand. I just thought that it would be a good idea. Hinata reached out and touched Naruto's hand and smiled. Naruto, you surprised me. I had not even thought about what I would do after I finished my training. It's true I am not on Shino's and Kiba's team anymore, but Lady Tsunade approached me about being a stopgap operative. Basically I would go wherever she needed me. Maybe she would let us do that together. Naruto perked up and nodded. That would be great. Well, what have we here? Hinata and Naruto eating together. Shikamaru walked up and grinned at both of them and sat at the table. It's a definite surprise to see you Naruto. You haven't been here in what, 3 years? Naruto nodded slightly. Yeah, it has been a long time. How are you doing? Shikamaru shrugged as he leaned his chair backwards and crossed his hands behind his head. Same as always, I can't complain. What are you two doing? Going to get a little training in. Hinata nodded as she sipped her coffee again. Yes, Naruto and I have been training together since he came back to the village a few days ago. Shikamaru smiled as he looked from one to the other. Really? I see the two of you have finally gotten chummy. Are you dating already? Hinata blushed slightly, then looked at Naruto and shrugged. Naruto slurped up some ramen, then tipped his head sideways before nodding. We are spending as much time together as possible and seeing where it goes. So far it has been awesome. Shikamaru smiled as he leaned his chair forward again. Well, that's good. I am glad to hear that the two of you are getting along so well. Looking at his watch, he stood up. I have to meet Ino before I go on a mission. What a drag. I guess we can hang out after I get back. You guys take care. Naruto turned to say something to Hinata, but she seemed to be blushing and she was looking at him. What? Is everything okay? You're not getting sick, are you? Hinata shook her head no, then slowly leaned forward and whispered to him. So we are dating. Naruto thought about it, then shrugged. It is what we are doing, isn't it? We meet every day. We talk and hang out together at night. What else could it be? Hinata frowned a little and started twiddling her index fingers around each other. Well, you never officially said we were dating. I just thought that if we were dating you would have asked me to be your girlfriend. Her voice trailed off as she looked down at her hands. Am I so low in his eyes that he couldn't ask me? Naruto was about to answer her when the fox chose that moment to interject his opinion. Pup, you are about to step into a gray area that will cause you some heartache if you are not cautious. But what am I supposed to say? I'm not sure what to do if we become boyfriend and girlfriend. Does it change things much? Yes and no. Once you are boyfriend and girlfriend, it is alright for you to hug and kiss as often as the two of you agree. Plus, there are other fringe benefits, but at the same time, there are pitfalls and the chance for heartbreak is greater. The logical thing is to examine your feelings. Naruto thought about it for a few minutes and he ticked off all of the things he knew about Hinata. Well, she is nice and fun to be with. I like her laugh, and she still encourages me and is always nice to me. And she is the prettiest girl in the village. Fine, but you forgot the most important thing. Do you miss her when she isn't there? Naruto stopped and thought about it. Even from the first day he remembered his arms felt empty without her in them, and when she cried he wanted to take on the world to make her feel better or to stop her from being sad. Hinata was looking into her coffee as she finished off her cinnamon roll and Naruto watched her and he couldn't help feeling a surge of emotion as he watched her. Hinata-chan, I would like the truth. How do you feel about me? Hinata looked up and as she heard his question she blushed almost to the color purple and she toyed with her coffee cup for a few moments. Well, I like you very much. But I like you as much more than just a friend. I have thought about you often and I have always wondered what it would be like to be more to you than just a friend. She looked at her fingers and fidgeted a little before she finally blurted out the words that Naruto was waiting for. Her color had not reduced and she visibly squirmed in her chair. I can't hide this anymore, I have to tell him. Please Naruto-kun, don't reject me. I know when I am home and you are not near me I am lonely and when we are together I am happy. When you hold me I feel safe and secure and all my worries and troubles go away. To be honest, you are the only boy I have ever felt this way about, Naruto-kun. She looked in his eyes, but seeing the controlled look on his face she started to lose hope. For a moment Hinata looked as if she might cry but she squared her jaw. I hurt when we are not together, my heart feels empty and I do not want to do anything. I cannot lie to you, I do not think I could ever be with another man other than you. There. She said it. After all the years she finally told him what had been in her heart all these years but was afraid to let out. Her eyes closed and she let her breath out in one big rush before she opened them again and she stared down at her hands and would not meet his eyes. If he rejected her now, if he didn't want her like that, she would continue to be his friend, but she didn't think she could ever be happy again. Naruto blinked as he considered her words. The fox chuckled and told him a few things and Naruto nodded in response to it. As having that kind of relationship comes with responsibilities to each other. Are you willing to accept and bear those responsibilities? Are you willing to make that kind of commitment? Hinata blinked as she looked at him. The words seemed so mature, so different than what she was used to from Naruto. What other secrets did he have that she would have to discover? After a few seconds of thought she remembered his question. Hinata didn't even hesitate another second as she took his hand and kissed it. I would do anything to make you happy. Naruto nodded then kissed her hand in return. Hinata Hyuga, will you be my girlfriend? Hinata smiled and she laughed as tears ran down her face. Yes. Yes, I will be your girlfriend. Chuki looked from behind his counter and smiled. Ayami came from the back and saw her father leaning on the counter with a silly grin on his face. Dad, what's going on? Chuki shushed her then gestured her to come forward. She leaned around his shoulder and saw Naruto and Hinata holding hands, and Chuki whispered to her. Naruto just asked her to be his girlfriend, and she just said yes. Hinata stood up and knocked over her chair and Naruto met her halfway and they hugged across the table until Naruto came around it and they hugged laughing together. Ayami got misty and wiped her eyes lightly. That is so sweet. She turned and looked at her father, and was surprised to see him wiping his eyes too. He looked at her then blushed a little. Oh come on, you know I'm a sucker for happy endings. Ayami popped him with her towel and they laughed as he went to the back to stop spying on the young couple. Naruto smiled as they hugged. Her little body felt right in his arms, in fact everything felt right. So this is what it feels like to have someone care about you. Fana laughed as he lay down in his mind again and yawned. Oh, this is just the beginning. You will understand soon enough. Naruto looked down at Hinata and she looked up into his eyes and he got an idea. Hey, I don't usually say this, but why don't we blow today off, go somewhere and have some fun together? Hinata smiled then put on a playful expression. Oh, I don't know. I mean, I had so many things that had to be accomplished today. If I do that, then nothing will get done. I am just so swamped with everything. Naruto frowned then nodded. Oh, okay. Well, maybe we can pick a day where we both can skip out and have fun. Hinata blinked and her smile faltered before she grinned again and lightly tweaked Naruto's side, making him jump. Naruto, I was kidding. I would love to play hooky with you. It's not like I have to report to anyone today, let's go for it. Naruto grinned and looked a little sheepish. Oh, I get it. I thought you were serious. You don't joke very often like that, Hinata. Hinata squeezed him tight for a second then laughed. Well, get used to it. When I am with you, I feel like I can do anything. You do seem more confident and definitely happier when we are together, Hinata-chan. Hinata rubbed her forehead against his chest then looked up at him again. So what do you have planned for us today? Naruto smiled as he disengaged from her and placed some money on the table for the food. Tell you what, let's run to your house so you can grab a swimsuit and then we will run to mine so I can grab mine, and then we can go and have some fun. Hand in hand, the new couple walked out of the ramen stand heading for adventure. Oh. Neji walked into his uncle's study and bowed slightly. Good morning, uncle. You wanted to see me. Hiyashi turned and looked at Neji and placed his quill on the desk. Yes, Neji, I wanted to know about your progress in finding Hinata a suitable husband. Neji smiled as he stood with his feet shoulder length apart and his hands behind his back. Yes, uncle, I believe I am making excellent progress. I have a couple of promising candidates that I have selected from the list you gave me. With one exception, he thought. Unfortunately, none of them show any promise as far as adding new strength to our bloodline. 2 will make excellent statesmen and will improve the holding of the Hyuga clan. 3 will make excellent husbands, but 2 of those will be stubborn and unpalatable for Hinata, and I believe she will not adapt to them. The last one, I believe with time will be able to help Hinata manage the clan's affairs, and I believe he is the best match for Hinata as a future husband. He has no specific abilities, but he has a good bloodline and he is a strong warrior right now, and I believe he has potential to become one of the best. Hiyashi nodded slowly as he considered. Have you approached him yet? Neji didn't even bat an eye as he told the lie. No. I am observing him and trying to garner all of the necessary information in order to solidify our position. I do not want to have him slip through our fingers. Hiyashi nodded with a slow smile. Excellent. I knew that assigning you this was the best choice. Remember, the most important thing is getting a strong husband for Hinata. The next heir must be able to produce an even stronger, more talented heir for the future of our house. I am sure you are aware of the importance of this and I will leave the details to you. Neji bowed with a slight smile. Of course. It is my duty to make sure the next heir is protected and cared for. With a strong husband she will have both. I will find her the strongest and even help him to become that way. On my life, I will fulfill my duty. Hiyashi nodded to Neji then went back to his paperwork and Neji bowed himself out and went about his business. A day at the water park can be an awesome thing. Usually, The park was full of kids and their parents walking around from attraction to attraction trying to have fun and not be frustrated by the crowds. Today Hinata and Naruto were treated to something special. The park was open early enough in the day that it wasn't overcrowded with children or grumpy parents. They wasted no time running to the biggest and best waterslide in the park and running to the top, then sliding all the way to the bottom. They did this over and over again until they got competitive and started racing each other to the bottom. Hinata squealed as she flew down the ramp at high speed. She could hear Naruto on the other side bellowing like a bull as he went through the twists and turns. "I'm gonna beat you." "Oh no you won't." Hinata yelled back as she picked up the front end of her mat and flew even faster through the chute until she finally emerged a split second before Naruto did at the bottom of the ramp. I won. Hinata jumped up quickly then ran over and tackled Naruto as he tried to stand up. Giggling, he stood up and picked her up over his shoulder and grabbed their mats and carried her back up the ramp. Hinata kicked her legs and playfully beat her hands on his back like a kidnapped maiden. "Oh you brute. Put me down. Put me down. Not on your life. Now I will carry you up and throw you from the cliffs of chaos into the sea below. Muhahaha." Hinata giggled like a schoolgirl then maneuvered herself until she was able to slide down his back and ride piggyback style all the way to the top of the slide again. She was so happy as she touched her forehead to the back of his head then leaned down and kissed him gently on the back of his neck. "I am having so much fun Naruto-kun. I never thought that I would ever be this happy." Naruto sighed at the kiss and nodded. "I am enjoying it to Hinata-chan. I have never enjoyed anyone's company as much as I enjoy yours. I'm so glad that we have become closer this way, but now, off the cliffs of chaos with you." Hinata screamed as Naruto spun her around as if he was going to throw her down the ramp but then stood her on her feet in front of him and she snuck in a quick kiss on his cheek before jumping on her mat and starting down. "Hey that's cheating," he yelled as he jumped on his mat and dove down another ramp. Faster and faster he raced. There was no way she was going to beat him this time. He wouldn't slow down at all and he would pass and beat her to the bottom in no time. He could hear her laughing as he whipped through the turns and then he heard her voice somewhere behind him and he laughed as he went whipping around and around the turns. Naruto, being his usual carefree or careless self depending on your point of view, took turns too sharp, and during straight paths lifted the front of his mat for maximum speed. At one point he almost flipped over completely in a sharp turn but he was able to bring it back under control until he hit the last part of the ramp and realized he was going way too fast to slow down. He tried to use his hands, but almost burned the skin from them trying to slow his progress. At the last second he realized he would have to take the jump and accept the consequences. Naruto hit the last jump on the ramp, and was airborne for what felt like an eternity, and he was a good 10 feet in the air as he hit the slow-down pool. As he landed, he felt a sharp pain in his lower abdomen that took his breath away and left him lying helpless as Hinata splashed down a few seconds later. Thankfully, Fana was sound asleep, had been since earlier that morning so Naruto would not have to hear the dreaded, "I told you so." Hinata stood up and wiped the water from her eyes. "Naruto-kun, that was awesome." As she looked around she saw him still lying in the water and she came over and jumped on his back playfully. "Oh, pretending to have drowned are you? You won, there is no reason to pretend." As she looked down at him she saw the look of pain on his face. "Naruto-kun, are you okay? What happened?" Naruto looked up and smiled weakly at her. "I came down too fast and hit the water pretty hard. I think I'm okay, just a pain. I was going so fast, and I landed really hard." Naruto stood slowly and Hinata helped him until he was able to stand on his own but she saw him grimace as he took a step. Maybe we should go sit in the hot spring for a little bit." Hinata nodded as she took his arm and walked slowly with him to the hot spring pool. Any disappointment she would have felt was immediately replaced by her concern for him as he walked unsteadily with her until they stood in front of the pool. Naruto settled slowly into the spring and sighed as the heat surrounded him and he looked at Hinata and smiled as he rested an arm on her shoulder. Hinata leaned closer until he was able to hug her close to him and she placed a hand on his chest and rubbed it over his muscle and traced a few scars with a fingertip, still marveling at how well developed he was. "I'm really having a wonderful time Naruto-kun. I am so glad that we decided to come here today." Naruto grimaced then nodded. "I am too. It has been a great day so far." A sharp pain made Naruto lurch forward and reach down between his legs. Ow. Hinata blinked at him with concern as she leaned back to look at him. Naruto, you are hurt. Where is the pain? Let me see. Naruto blushed as he looked up at her. No. It's fine. Just a cramp or something. As he tried to sit up, another burst of pain made him jerk forward again. Ow. Hinata leaned closer, concern etched clearly on her face. Please, Naruto-kun. Tell me where it hurts. Seeing the deep concern on her face made him pause and realize being embarrassed and manly would not ease her concern, nor would it make his pain go away. Naruto frowned, then blushed again as he held himself, but it didn't alleviate his immediate suffering, and he had to admit, something didn't feel right. After considering his options, he blurted out, down there. Hinata blushed also, but then put on a serious face. Hold on. She got up and ran over to the rental booth and came back with a key and helped Naruto stand, and they walked over to a cabana. Naruto wasn't sure what to expect, but followed her docilely. Having never experienced a pain like this before, he wasn't going to argue. Hinata used the key to open the door and helped Naruto walk into the cabana and lie down on a massage table before closing and locking the door. Naruto-kun, I know this is going to sound weird. Hinata blushed furiously, but, take off your shorts. What? But, Naruto looked at her, but seeing her serious expression, he blushed and slowly inched his shorts down. When they were just barely covering his bahugis, he looked at her again. Her expression, although she was blushing, told him she wasn't going to accept any nonsense. That and the next burst of pain made his hands jerk and almost sit upright on the table. With a painful sigh, he pushed them down to his knees and waited for her verdict. Once they were below his knees, Hinata pulled them off of his legs and placed them at the end of the table before looking at him. Hinata gasped and looked up at Naruto's face, then looked back at his crotch again, blush still firmly in place. Naruto, it's huge. Naruto looked at her and felt immediately scandalized, but also felt a surge of pride. Hinata, don't talk like that. Hinata blushed harder and lightly smacked him on the arm. Not that. Your testicle. I think you torqued it when you landed. Naruto just blinked at her as she tentatively reached out and pressed against his swollen testicle. Naruto gasped and jerked halfway up, which caused her to place a hand on his shoulder and push him back on the table. Sorry, but you need to relax, try not to move. I'm going to touch it again and I need you to stay still so I can fix it, or you could permanently damage it. What would happen then? Hinata frowned and shook her head. Nothing good. At the worst, they might have to amputate it. Naruto blinked, then pointed frantically at his crotch. You mean cut it off? Hurry. Fix it. Please. Hinata nodded as she took a deep breath and summoned her chakra. Byakugan. Reaching down, she grasped his testicle in her hands and slowly applied pressure until she was able to grasp it through the scrotum and began to do what felt like her massaging it to Naruto. Naruto gasped as he felt her hands and the pressure she was generating, and then felt something else, and he panicked and desperately conjured up images in his mind of old wrinkled men, piles of homework that had to be done overnight, Jiraiya picking his nose, anything, just please don't get any bigger. Unfortunately, his body refused to listen. The damn thing seemed to like embarrassing him more than anything, it seemed. Hinata blushed even more than before, but she continued to work until Naruto felt the pressure ease before it completely went away and he was able to breathe again without everything in his lower body hurting. Hinata looked at his face and smiled slightly as she saw the obvious relief on his face. How does that feel, Naruto-kun? No more pain. Naruto nodded and let out his breath in a long sigh. Much better. Is everything okay? Hinata nodded. Everything looks okay, but it might be a little swollen for a few days. I would suggest no training or running until the swelling is gone. Hinata reached over and grabbed a towel and covered Naruto's crotch with it, then smiled at him. Naruto frowned but then tried to put a smile on his face. I'm sorry, Hinata-chan. I know that wasn't easy for you to do. Hinata reached out and gently touched his cheek. You do not have to apologize about it. It was something that happened and I am glad that I was able to fix it. Besides, even though it embarrassed me, I was finally able to do something real to a real patient. I can't wait to tell Lady Tsunade what I was able to do. Naruto looked panicked for a second and reached out and grabbed her hand. Please, Hinata-chan, please don't tell her who it was. I don't want her to get the wrong idea. Hinata smiled and nodded. Don't worry, You were just some anonymous patient. Naruto grinned at her and pulled her hand to his face and kissed it. Thank you, Hinata-chan. Naruto looked down then back at Hinata and she smiled at him. Besides, what kind of girlfriend would I be if I couldn't help you like that? I told you, Naruto-kun, I will do anything I can to make you happy. I think relieving you of pain would fall deeply in that category. Naruto blushed as he thought about what anything entailed but then quickly changed the subject. Hinata, what does torqued mean? Hinata smiled as she sat next to him on the table. Well, torqued means you twisted it. The testicle has a series of tubes and veins inside of it attaching it to the reproductive system in your body. Since these tubes are all that is anchoring it to you, it is very delicate. When you landed hard, it must have twisted around and pinched those tubes and veins. When that happened, the blood flow was cut off. In most cases, blood going in and going out is cut off, so all you will have is pain. But you had the outgoing side pinched, so blood and fluid was coming in and not going out, that is why it got swollen. Naruto nodded as he thought about what she said and then nodded. I understand. Well, it is a good thing you were here then. I know it embarrassed you, but I really appreciate that you were able to do it and not some stranger. A stranger that knew who and what he was would probably have left him to suffer in pain, he thought bitterly. Hinata blushed but smiled cutely. Thank you, Naruto-kun. As she watched him, a thought seemed to cross her mind and she seemed to fight with herself over it. She opened her mouth, then closed it again and just smiled at him. After a few minutes she did it again, then finally said his name. Naruto-kun, can I ask you a question? Naruto nodded as he turned to look at her. What is it, Hinata-chan? He noticed she was blushing still, so he wondered what was on her mind that could be embarrassing her still. Hinata rubbed his chest lightly, then blushed deeply and her skin got goosebumps. When it gets hard, does it hurt? Naruto looked at her and blushed himself as he thought about it. Not really pain. I think you could call it pressure. To be honest, it hasn't really bothered me until recently, and usually I can ignore it. Hinata thought for a moment, then nodded before her head to the right and smiling coyly at him. Recently, like at your house the other day when you were doing all those laps in the pool. Naruto grinned as he looked at her and he nodded, nervous of what her reaction to his responses would be. Yeah, then was the first time it really happened and I couldn't stop it. Hinata leaned closer to Naruto and kissed his shoulder before looking at his face again. It was because of me, wasn't it? Naruto hemmed and hawed for a few seconds, then nodded slowly. It wasn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. I just felt really close to you and it just happened. Hinata blushed as she looked into his eyes, thinking how she always felt like she was swimming when she looked into them. Naruto-kun, do not punish yourself. It is a natural reaction and I do not feel anger towards you for something you cannot really control. In fact, even though I might get embarrassed, I am flattered that you like me so much that you react to me that way. Naruto looked surprised as he watched her. Are you serious? You aren't pissed at me? You're not gonna bash me on the top of my head and call me names? Hinata frowned deeply, then shook her head as she remembered a few instances in their youth. Naruto-kun, you have to remember, and please understand this, I am not Sakura. I would never beat you up, especially not for that. I'll care about you more than you understand, and I would never hurt you because you are a man and I am a woman. Naruto felt relief wash over him. Though he never had a relationship before with any woman, he was glad that this relationship would not have him being beaten on a regular basis like it would have been if he did hook up with Sakura. Hinata frowned inwardly and wondered why she still couldn't admit to the depth of feeling she had for him. She would have to think about it later. Right now, her new boyfriend needed her loving care and she would give it to him. Hinata smiled and gave his side a little push and he scooted over and she lay down on the table next to him and curled up against his side, hands resting on his chest. Naruto, still a little unsure, paused for a moment before asking again. Are you sure? I mean, I don't want you to think I'm a perv or something. Hinata sighed as his arm wrapped around her, then nodded. Of course, in fact I am flattered. I mean, don't misunderstand, I was embarrassed because I have never seen one in real life, let alone touched one. But it makes me happy that you care enough about me to desire me. In a smaller voice she added. I never thought anyone would like me like that. Naruto gingerly rolled over enough so he could put his other arm around her and hug her to him. Every day she seemed to surprise him more and more. She seemed to make huge leaps with him. She was not as self-conscious anymore, and she actually laughed and had fun now. Naruto watched her and lightly traced her jawline with his fingertip and smiled as he thought to himself. Can it get any better than this? Oh. Iruka walked into the dingy basement and walked over to the figure sitting behind the desk. The man looked up at him with a slight frown on his face as he stared up at him and waited in expectation. Iruka wasted no time as he leaned closer. Is it true? He is back in the city. The man nodded slowly and gauged Iruka's reaction. Iruka seemed to think for a time before nodding to himself. I will resume my duties immediately. We have to be prepared in case they decide to move first. The man nodded as Iruka turned and gathered a few things from a nearby table, then turned and left the cellar without another word. It was 2 days later, and Naruto seemed to recover twice as fast as a normal person from his problem with his testicle. Hinata was surprised, but also just as happy when he dropped his pants so she could look at it, only a slight blush on his face. When she tried to look at it the day after the accident, he refused to do it. In fact, he acted like a child about to get a shot in his butt for the first time. Flossback. Naruto-kun, let me look at it. Lady Tsunade told me I should check on the patient until the injury was completely healed. Why are you being so stubborn now? You let me look at it yesterday. Naruto stood on the other side of the bathroom door and shook his head. No way, Hinata-chan. You convinced me to let you look at it yesterday because you said they might have to cut it off, but I'm not falling for that again. If I am healing, then there is no reason for you to look at it again. Hinata stomped her foot in frustration as she considered kicking the door down, but she knew how stubborn Naruto could be, so she had to think of another way. As she considered her options, it came to her, and she smoothed her jacket before she changed her tone of voice. Naruto-kun, don't you want me to succeed? Naruto frowned as he considered her words but couldn't fathom what she meant. I don't understand, Hinata-chan, what are you talking about? Hinata took a deep breath, then rested her forehead against the bathroom door. Naruto-kun, in order to be confirmed ready to be a practicing medic nin, I have to be cleared by Lady Tsunade. In order for her to clear me, I have to have practical experience. I have had some at the hospital working in the wards with her, but I have not done anything unsupervised as yet. You are the first person I have been able to heal without having someone hovering over my shoulder. Naruto blinked as he considered her words. It made sense, he thought, but she had already healed him. But I'm fine now. You don't have to keep looking at it. Hinata's frustration started to creep back into her voice. But I do. You aren't considered healed until you are released by the person who healed you. But you won't let me finish my job. Do you want me to lie to Lady Tsunade? She stood there waiting for him to answer, but when he didn't, Hinata slid to the floor and rested her bottom against her heels as she squatted there, and for a moment she hiccuped as she felt the frustrated tears start. After a moment she whispered, I only just got you in my life, Naruto-kun, the way I have always dreamed. Don't you understand how much it will hurt me to lose you because of something I could have fixed or helped you with? Something I could have prevented. Being deceptive to him wasn't really in her. She didn't lie, but Lady Tsunade would give her a chance to show that she could operate on her own. The truth was, she was terrified of losing the one person in her life that meant more than her life did to her. Silence reigned in the hall as her tears dropped silently to the floor, until finally the door's lock clicked and he opened it and looked at her. Seeing that she really was upset by this, he frowned but opened the door all the way. Hinata-chan, don't cry. It's not that I don't want you to do it. I'm just embarrassed. I don't even like the doctors and nurses to see me. Hinata looked up at him and nodded in understanding. Would it help if I told you I also want to do it because I am worried about you? I don't like to see you hurt or in pain, and I want to help if I can. Naruto blinked but shook his head quickly. But it will embarrass you too, won't it? Hinata nodded as she stood up, but didn't approach him in case he tried to close the door again. Yes, but you being okay is more important than me being embarrassed. I promise I just want you to be okay. I haven't even told Lady Tsunade who it is, just that I did it, which surprised her too. Naruto was still frowning, but after a few minutes of deep thought, he unhitched his towel and let it drop to the floor. End flashback. Taking a clinical state of mind, otherwise she would have blushed like there was no tomorrow, she checked him thoroughly using the Byakugan in her hands and announced that they could go back to training. With a cheer, Naruto happily pulled his pants up, took her hand, and led Hinata out of his house to the training grounds. It seemed the procedure, and the embarrassment had been forgotten, but they still hadn't quite gotten started with their practice for that day. After they got to the training grounds and were ready to start, Naruto decided it was time to play and chased her around the practice field. Hinata laughed as she smacked Naruto's hand away when he went to hug her. Stop it. Be serious, Naruto-kun. We are supposed to be training. Naruto lurched at her again, a leering grin on his face as he bugged his eyes out. Hee, I am the pervy sage. I need to do my research on you, Hyuga Hinata. Come. I just want to touch you for a moment, please. It is for my next project. You do not want my next masterpiece to be laid to you. Hinata made as if to run left, then quickly cut right as he lurched to the left and missed her again. No. I am meant for one man only. Caesar, I will call his name and he will give you the beating of your life. Naruto pretended to be stupefied, then shook his head. Bologna. There is no man greater than Jiraiya, Toad Sage Extraordinaire. You may bow and grovel before me now, he said in a haughty manner, striking a regal-seeming pose. Hinata giggled, but still kept her distance from him. No, I am the girlfriend of the great Uzumaki Naruto, and you will never be as great as he. Hinata had to fight the urge to black out, as unbeknownst to Naruto, she really did mean what she said, and it filled her with pride to say such a thing out loud after so many years of being too embarrassed to let him know how she felt. Naruto beamed at her, and the words she almost shouted to the heavens. Deep inside of him, one of the knots in his heart finally loosened, and he felt a surge of emotion he never felt before. The QB quietly smiled, but said nothing, and he seemed to relax more as well. Not wanting to stop though, Naruto quickly dropped back into the play personality he had assumed. Oh, it is okay. I will not keep you. I just want to make sure you are properly proportioned. How else can I draw you? Naruto pretended to take out a book and a pencil and mimed drawing a picture in it, gazing at Hinata, then drawing again. No, those are much bigger than that. Hinata's eyes bulged and she came over and tweaked his side, causing him to jump. Stop that. The size of my are not your business. Still using the fake Jiraiya voice, he blinked at her. Quote question mark. Oh, I was drawing your eyes, but now that you mention those. Hinata screamed as she covered her in mock embarrassment, even if she did blush a little. You see, she was always self-conscious of her body. Since she turned 11, her had started growing. She was quite embarrassed of them at first, because she noticed she was looking different than the other girls her age. Without a mother figure to explain things to her, she began wearing bigger and baggier clothes to cover up the changes that were occurring in her. And when a boy would take an interest in her assets, she would withdraw even further, propagating the weird girl attitude. After she turned 16, however, and they hadn't stopped growing, she stopped worrying about trying to hide them, and just tried to live with them. They seemed to get in the way of everything, especially training. Bordering on a double C cup, she was no Tsunade, but she was getting there. Kurene had given her some tips on what to wear, and even showed her a jutsu that would stop them from bouncing all over the place while she was in combat or training, but since she was only interested in one particular boy, she had no reason to show them off, so her new jacket, while not nearly as big as her previous one, was still big enough to hide most of her girls from all but the most discerning eye. Hinata shook the thought from her head, and instead began trying to tickle Naruto. Naruto then grabbed her by the waist and started tickling her. Now I gotcha. Hinata squirmed in his grasp, laughing. No, not that. Try as she might, Naruto pursued her, tickling her mercilessly. Hinata then turned the tables by tickling him on his waist as well with her small fingers. Ah. No. The tickling lasted until they both fell to the ground in a heap, hugging each other and laughing uncontrollably. Naruto, still having occasional bursts of laughter, looked in her eyes, then leaned forward quickly and kissed Hinata on the lips. He wasn't completely sure why he did it, he just knew he had to for some reason. In mid-laugh, Hinata gasped, eyes wide open in surprise. Slowly, her eyelids lowered until they were closed and she melted into the kiss. In both of their minds, fireworks exploded, and light bulbs flared and popped from overload as their senses lit up from the new experience. Naruto pulled back and smiled at her, which made her giggle, as her face became crimson. I'm sorry, I love seeing you happy and hearing you laugh. Seeing how happy you were made me want to kiss you. Hinata put her head down and nodded but reached up and placed her hand on his chest. Naruto, that was my first time. I've never kissed a boy before. Naruto frowned slightly but reached up and took her hand in his and kissed it lightly. No, you've kissed me before. Hinata shook her head. That was different. I kissed you on the cheek, like a friend. This time it was on the lips. I've never been kissed like that before. No one has ever wanted. Naruto placed a finger on her lips and shook his head. Me neither. Hinata, still blushing, smiled at him shyly, but nodded her head. Well, it was the first for both of us. Naruto nodded slightly but looked at her curiously. Oh, well, was it bad? Hinata shook her head vigorously. No, it was really nice. It's just I have never done it before and you surprised me. Did you like it? Naruto thought for a moment, then got a mischievous look in his eyes and he smiled. I don't know, it was so quick I couldn't tell. Maybe we should do it again. Hinata put her hand to her mouth and giggled, then nodded. Yes, I think you are right. Their heads came together and Hinata reached up and wrapped her arms around his neck and he gently enfolded her in his arms and their lips met. Hinata's heart was pounding and she felt butterflies dancing in her stomach as his lips moved slightly against hers and a little voice screamed over and over again in her head, I'm kissing Naruto-kun. Naruto_kun is kissing me. We are kissing each other. Naruto listened to the Kyuubi as he kissed Hinata. The damn fox seemed to talk in its sleep now, as its eyes were closed and he was laying half on his side but his mouth was moving. Some of the things Naruto did were instinctual, like closing his eyes at the point of contact, and holding her in his arms. But the fox was telling him to partially part his lips and to touch his tongue against her lips. It didn't make sense, so he ignored Fana for now. Why would she want his tongue in her mouth? It sounded weird to Naruto, so he left it alone. Naruto broke the kiss and his heart began to slow down as he looked at her. Hinata's eyes were still closed and she still moved her lips as if they were still kissing. Naruto thought it a little comical, but he let her come down at a slower pace than he did until she finally opened her eyes and looked at him again. Naruto-kun, that was the most amazing feeling I have ever had. Naruto smiled and nodded. It was for me too. My stomach felt funny and everything. With a slight blush, Hinata looked down at his crotch and then back up at him. Everything. Naruto blushed then pushed her lightly. Hinata, I have enough trouble keeping that asleep. I don't need you to encourage it. Hinata giggled then rolled away from Naruto and leapt to her feet and assumed the new stance he showed her earlier in the day. Playtime is over. Let us see if that stance you showed me works for me as well. Naruto stuck his tongue out at her as he climbed to his feet. Spoil sport. He mumbled then nodded as he assumed a stance that Hinata didn't recognize and she paused. What is that, Naruto? I have never seen that stance before. Naruto grinned then rubbed the back of his neck. Oh, I didn't realize. It is a stance that another teacher taught me on my travels with Jiraiya. It is the toad stance. It is good for defensive fighting but has a strong kicking style. I learned a few others as well before we moved on. Hinata smiled as she watched then nodded. Alright, it is an unfamiliar stance to me, but I will do my best against it. Hinata assumed the crane stance, her usual style as Naruto summoned his chakra. Her feet was 8 apart and her weight rested on the balls of her feet as her arms were spread also, one to the front and one behind her. A look of determination came to her face as she gathered her chakra. Byakugan, she exclaimed, activating her blood limit as she charged in and struck at Naruto's neck and chest using the gentle fist style, but Naruto was able to block her strikes with his feet, keeping her at a minimum range. Tucking and rolling, she came up to strike at his legs and groin, but Naruto jumped then flipped over and behind her. Hinata watched and began to see a change as the red and blue chakra in his body began to blend and infuse his system, something he must have learned to do on his journey with Master Jiraiya. He was only able to use one or the other previously, now he seemed to be able to use both at the same time. This was something she had never seen him do before, so she paused for a moment and dropped into another layer of the Byakugan and saw that his chakra was infusing his skin. This was a strange new phenomena as she perceived his chakra giving his skin a dark lavender color. It was almost hypnotic to watch, but she shook herself out of it. Hinata rushed in as Naruto assumed a new stance, but this technique involved his arms at his sides and him in a modified horse stance, hands clenched into fists. She would have hesitated because he seemed foolhardy, but she knew he was not stupid, so she trusted him to know what he was doing. Hinata didn't want to hurt Naruto, but they were sparring, so she deemed it safe to show him what she had learned through her years of practice and training. 8 trigrams, 64 palms. The gentle fist attack in this stance was designed to break chakra points to stop the flow so the enemy would become weak as a baby. Hinata had trained hard, and was almost at the same level Neji was during the Chunin exams. She struck Naruto's chakra points and she knew she was doing it properly, but his chakra remained as bright as ever. Even more surprising was each blow that landed only seemed to make him flinch slightly or step back. It was almost like she wasn't affecting him at all. In the height of her attack she didn't notice, but she heard it now. Each strike she made didn't sound like flesh hitting flesh, but more like she was striking wet metal. Naruto growled, then turned fully towards her and finished a series of hand signs. No Gaido. Iron Fist Jutsu. He took a step towards her and threw a left punch that would have connected with her chest, but he stopped it short and it still felt as if someone had punched her very hard in the chest, knocking her back a step. She exhaled with the blow and returned 4 strikes to Naruto's neck, chest, and stomach, but that stance he was using made it have no effect. It had to be the stance, but what was it? She threw a forward thrust kick that hit him solidly in the solar plexus, but all it did was make him lean back slightly. Naruto leaned back forward, then took another step and threw a right uppercut at her stomach, which he pulled well short, and this one knocked the wind from her and broke her concentration, and she lost the Byakugan as well as her stance. His next punch he stopped long before it would have landed, and she felt his hands on her shoulders, and as her vision cleared she saw he was looking at her in concern. Are you all right, Hinata-chan? She nodded her head slightly and leaned into him. I've never felt a blow like that before. You caught me unawares and I lost my concentration. What technique is that? Naruto smiled but placed a finger to her lips. If I tell you, then you cannot reveal it to anyone else. Do you promise? Hinata nodded as he guided her to a tree and they sat down. It is an ancient style that was forgotten when the 4th Hokage died. It is called the tortoise style. It maximizes defense and power at the sacrifice of speed. As you could see, I could only move 1 step at a time. Combined with the Iron Fist Jutsu, it's devastating at close range, so he explained to me. He grinned his famous, to her, smile and rubbed her back as her breathing returned to normal. Hinata nodded but shook her head as she touched the spots where Naruto's blows should have landed if he didn't pull his punches. She was sure she would have a bruise or two from the way they felt. But that iron fist, if you had actually hit me. Naruto nodded. Master Number Gaido told me that it was a technique that he was taught by the 4th Hokage. There are 3 other jutsus that complement it, but they are just as dangerous to the user as to the enemies. It was also called the last stand, or martyr's stance, and after thinking about it I can fully understand why. Anyone who used it was unable to use any other jutsu until they purged the effects from their system. Anyway, the 4th Hokage taught him and made him promise he would only teach it to one who he deemed worthy of learning it, and only that one. Jiraiya took me to him hoping he would teach me. When I talked to him he asked me what made me think I was worthy. Hinata blinked as she placed her hand on his shoulder. How did you convince him? What did you say? Naruto smiled then laughed. What I always say. I told him I was going to be Hokage, and I would protect the village and everyone that was precious to me. Hinata laughed then nodded. I'm sure he believed every word. Naruto frowned as he remembered. Well, that's the funny thing. He said it wasn't what I said, but the way I said it. Hinata watched him then shrugged. Maybe you reminded him of someone. It is great that you learned that style. Especially since no one will recognize it when you use it. It will come in handy if you have to fight someone in the future. Naruto grinned as he considered that. Hey, I didn't even think about that. I just was happy with the new skill. Hinata giggled then nodded. Naruto was still so simple. He had changed, but so much had not changed about him, and that made her happier than she could remember. Naruto frowned slightly as he thought about something then turned to her again. Why didn't you use the scorpion stance? Hinata frowned also as she thought about it, then shrugged. I am not used to it. It is not as fluid or graceful as the crane stance and I feel clumsy and awkward when I try to do it. Naruto nodded. I do not like it myself, but the scrolls Master no Gaido gave to me shows how it can be extremely powerful in close range combat. I'm positive combined with the gentle fist you would be able to stop anyone in their tracks. Hinata frowned slightly as she thought about it before she responded to him. I don't know Naruto-kun, it has taken me a long time to learn the gentle fist, and that is more graceful than this new stance. Naruto shrugged, but his smile made her falter. Well, why don't we do this? If you just can't get used to it, we won't practice with it anymore. I don't want to force you to try and learn something that you do not want to learn. Hinata nodded as she thought about it, a bit of surprise in her eyes. Naruto-kun is so different than my clan members. It still surprises me when he does not try to force or coerce me to do something. Alright, just for him I'll do it, I'll make him proud. I will practice it some more and see if I can get the hang of it, Naruto-kun. I'm sure with your help, I will be able to learn it. Naruto nodded and grinned at her before he picked up a pebble and tossed it across the training yard. That's the spirit, Hinata-chan, I know you can do it. Hinata smiled as she watched him, then on an impulse she leaned around him and kissed Naruto on the lips, causing him to blink, then close his eyes and return it as the fireworks and light bulbs were joined by supernovas. It seemed with each subsequent kiss, the effect got stronger. When she broke the kiss, he grinned at her with a bemused look. What was that for Hinata-chan? Hinata giggled with a slight blush and laid her head on his shoulder. Oh, I've just always wanted to do that, and this seemed like the perfect opportunity. I am glad that I was finally able to do it. As Naruto moved his head close to hers for another kiss, something different happened. They were interrupted. Excuse me, Hyuga Hinata. Hinata and Naruto turned and gazed at the man who had walked up on them. He was an Anbu operative dressed all in black, wearing the mask of an owl, and carrying a naginata in one hand. As he stopped in front of them, he placed the butt of his weapon on the ground. The Hokage would like you to come to her office. She says it is important and she would like you to not delay. Hinata looked at Naruto and he shrugged. I'll go with you. I've been wanting to talk to her about what we talked about the other day anyway. Hinata smiled then nodded. Okay, that sounds like a great idea. Naruto and Hinata stood together and gathered their belongings and turned as one, hand in hand, and walked out of the training grounds. The Anbu watched them leave, then shrugged before disappearing in a swirl of black smoke.